this thing up. There it is. This thing up. Oh, I could hear my microphone stand being adjusted. Oh. Well, I guess we'll wait for some people to show up. That window. Oh dear. Come on. Thing. I hate that YouTube takes forever to load the chat. Come on. Just load the thing. Goodness grief. There we go. That is the link. Not working. Nothing shows up. Oh, come on. Well, guess we're not going to be having any chat because this thing does not like me. There has to be a way. Hello, Crimson. I'm trying to get the chat to show up on the stream. There is a way to do it. For some reason, it's not working. And it's a little frustrating. I don't know why it's not working. It's worked in the past. Why is it not working now? Alright, let me just remake it. It's not behind anything. In there. It's not behind anything, so it should be working. I don't know why it's not working. Fresh cache. Yes, maybe? No? What? Why? Is it not working? You can tell I'm not very used to this. Sorry for kind of like going. We'll start the move a second here. I just really want to get this live chat to work. It's worked in the past. I don't know why it's not working now. It's come on. No, I just guess it's not going to work. Half the time the thing doesn't work. I don't know why. But yeah, it is what it is. Anyways, on to the movie. Why you're all here, I would imagine. So I do want to see about making a sort of highlight thing for this stream and actually post it to the channel. So I think I'm going to do what the kids call clip farming. So we're going to start the Sacred Geometry movie by Spirit Science. Have it up right here. This thing. Hour and 44 minutes. Made 10 years ago, which is about as long as all the other videos that I saw him make related to the things I mentioned in the video, like the moon not being real and Atlantis being real. I haven't seen any of his recent content. Ooh. I haven't seen much of his recent content, but I imagine it's similarly strange. But without further ado, let's see what we have in store for you. Woo-hoo-hoo.
Don't believe or disbelieve anything we discuss in spirit science. Simply have your own experience. Better get some popcorn ready. This one's going to be pretty long. Back in the late 1700s, early 1800s time period, there was a social movement liberating the modern world from the reign of control that religion and superstition had on the people. Essentially, after our darkest part on the precession of the equinox, we were really beginning to wake up. Started making new inventions that were rapidly changing the world.
Wait, when did he say this happened?
Control. Simply have your own
Let
experience.
me go back.
Better get some popcorn ready. This one's going to be pretty long. Back in the late 1700s, early
in the 1700s
time period,
and 1800s.
There was a social movement liberating the modern world from the reign of control that religion and superstition had on the people. Essentially, after our darkest part of the precession of the equinox, we were really beginning to wake up. Started making new inventions that were rapidly changing the world.
Oh, he's talking about the Industrial Revolution.
Because of this, we began to see that maybe religion as an answer was not in our best interest, and so the movement happened. We turned to science instead to answer our questions about the universe. The only problem with this was that we grouped in many things with superstition that we probably shouldn't have. Things like consciousness, intuition, human connection, paranormal phenomenon. All of it went right out the door with superstition, when in fact we've proven these things today to be real.
Yeah,
so after 200 years of...
Hold on. What did we prove to be real?
Consciousness.
Yeah, consciousness. Yeah, that's real.
Intuition, human connection, paranormal phenomenon.
Okay, well these top three are very different from the paranormal phenomenon. We haven't proven the paranormal phenomenon is real. But like many things, I don't think he's going to exactly prove that claim.
Phenomenon. All of it went right out the door with superstition, when in fact we've proven these things today to be real. So after 200 years of just going with...
Okay, we have one viewer in the chat, so I'm going to look at the one viewer and go, have you watched the recent video that we did on sacred geometry? So let's see what the chat says. Well, in case you haven't, I've heard about sacred geometry through... Yeah, then a lot of this isn't really going to make sense, so I'll try it and summarize it. Sacred geometry is something that I've heard mentions of and wanted to look more into, and so I looked into it, and I came to the conclusion that it's essentially in three camps. The first camp is that it's rules and regulations for building religious structures like churches and mosques and temples and all that stuff. The second part is these shapes that these spiritual sites. Cult of the Lamb live and followed you. Oh, I haven't done Cult of the Lamb in a while with my buddy Dragoon. I haven't really been streaming much as of late because, well, it doesn't go very well. I figured that scheduling at this time might work. And, well, there is someone here, so that's something. But the second part is these symbols that these spiritual centers say are like blueprints of the universe, and then the third part is kind of just the evolution of the second part where, oh, these things will unlock your consciousness and make you aware of all these universal mysteries and yada yada blah blah. And I named 2 channels that were behind this third part, Spirit Science being one of them, which is who we're watching right now. And then the other one, oh, hi, I like your avatar. Thank you, Salt Medical Doctor. We're watching the Spirit Science video, not video, movie on sacred geometry right now. Kind of getting a, I'm hesitant to say clear, but a view of what these people believe sacred geometry is. Because a lot of it is a lot of hooey, is what I'll say. Spirit Science is a very strange creator that has pushed some harebrained ideas, is what I'll say. So this movie is about 10 years old. So this came out in 2014. But he's still posting. He's still putting stuff up. I would imagine that the strangeness of the content hasn't changed at all, because the animation budget's gotten better. So we're going to learn what these people believe sacred geometry. Let's do one of those reaction streams that are all over YouTube right now, and engaging with chat, engaging with the audience while we're at it. Because, you know, I would like to talk with some people that watch my content, get kind of a live Q&A if I can. I've been reading all the comments on the videos. I'm very, very thankful for all the positivity. But I figured I'd do something a little different, testing out the waters. So without further ado, let's get back to... I realized that if I'm going to be a good reactor, it should be at least like double the runtime, which means we might be here for like 4 hours. Oh, Lord. Well, grab yourself some popcorn.
The same idea about what's classified as superstition and what's okay to talk about, mainstream science is still going with the assumption that consciousness is just a part of the brain. They don't know how it works, they don't have a single rational explanation for it, but they keep on believing it. Why? Well,
this was 10 years ago, so a lot of stuff that we have now is a lot more explored, a lot more research. So I can't fault him entirely for not knowing how consciousness works, but yeah, a lot of scientific sources believe it just stems from the brain, which maybe I'll make a video on conscious in the future. That could be interesting. That could be neat.
When we tossed superstition out of the door, even talking about it became taboo. It's just not done. Literally, the reason that it's tough talking about this stuff in the mainstream scientific community is because that's just the way science has been for 200 years. They won't have any of it, even though there are scientific institutions that prove that
Institute of Noetic Sciences.
Theory wrong. The field of noetics and the word
Noetics? Actually, hold on. What is the... Oh, I should increase the quality of this. Oh. Let me increase the quality of this video. Oh, it looks the same. That's 2014, baby.
Works of biologist Rupert Sheldrake and his colleagues have more than proven mass consciousness exists and is definitely not a part of the brain. Now,
hold on a second. What is that?
Institutions that prove that theory wrong. The field of noetics and the works of biologist Rupert Sheldrake and his colleagues have more than proven mass consciousness exists and is definitely not a part of the
Rupert Sheldrake and mass consciousness. Let's look at what this is. Morphic resonance? Morphic resonance. Hold on. Is this that thing they had in Zero Escape games? Let me look at mass consciousness. Ooh, well, I already have a long video there. Okay, let's look at the Wikipedia article. Concept of morphic resonance, conjecture that lacks mainstream acceptance, and has been widely criticized as pseudoscience. Oh wow, who could have seen that coming? Posits that memory is inherent in nature, and that natural systems inherit a collective memory from all previous things of their kind. So like genetics, but with extra bells and whistles. It's also responsible for telepathy-type interconnections between organisms. Yeah, that one I'm not too sure about. Adequacy of the idea offers idiosyncratic explanations of standard subjects in biology, such as development, inheritance, and memory. A lack of evidence for morphic resonance and inconsistencies between its tenets and data from genetics, embryology, neuroscience, and biochemistry. It also expressed concern that popular attention paid to Sheldrake's books and public appearances undermined the public's understanding of science. So it's more of a cult of personality, which is what a lot of these people kind of piggyback off of. So when he says, "Oh yeah, this guy has proved that mass consciousness is a thing," no, not really. From what I could see.
The brain. Now, no disrespect to the scientific community, but that assumption that we're still holding on to has not gotten us anywhere. It's time we begin to question the decisions of our ancestors, because many of the things that we've been led to believe to be true simply is not. I'm not saying blindly accept all of the new stuff that's coming out nowadays.
You just blindly accepted what Sheldrake did. It's what you did. It's just not enough proof.
But we should at least put it on the table and be able to discuss it as a global community. One other thing before we get this rolling. I want to give an overview about what sacred geometry really is.
Okay, so who all's in the chat right now? I know there's one person that hasn't seen the video, but I know there's one other person here that I don't know if they've seen the video. Come on, let's get that chat going. Let's get some participation. We're gonna do a pop quiz. This will be on the test. I want to ask you guys, because I covered these in the last video. What are these three shapes? Put your answers in now. Okay, well, since it's being a little quiet. This one is the flower of life, which they claimed has been seen in quantum science. I'm curious if he's going to bring that up. The only shape that I saw in quantum science related to this was a cross section of DNA, which kind of looks more like this, which is I believe it was the seed of life. And then I think this one's the fruit of life. All of these are of life. Almost every sacred geometry pattern has of life tacked onto the end of it. They really want to hammer that point home.
Sacred geometry is the geometry of consciousness. It revolves around the idea that all consciousness, including human, is solely based.
I remember seeing this picture on this very strange website. It was formatted really, really weird. Here, let me see if I can find it. It was searching it. Is it this one? No, it wasn't this one. Oh, here it is. Yeah, this is the picture from this website, and the formatting is strange. Well, it looks okay from this way, but when you look at it when the window's smaller, things just get a little out of whack. Yeah, I wanted to look at this for any information, any useful resources, but it really didn't have a whole lot. But yeah, I remember this picture.
Based on sacred geometry. Because it is, we can begin to see and understand where we have come from, where we are now, and where we're going.
It was Vitruvian Man. Yeah. What the? What? Hold on. Am I? That's the end of the video.
Based on sacred geometry. Because it is, we can begin to see and understand where we have come from, where we are now, and where we're going.
Well, he was saying something there and it got cut out. Did they have to cut a part of it out? Because it just was wrong? What is this? Okay, no, I think that was intentional. I think he just cut his audio out. Even I could edit better than that. Goodness. Oh, brother. A sacred geometry movie.
The universe is infinite.
Why does he sound different?
Has no beginning and no end. In both science and religion, creation is often discussed from a perspective of having a set or a specific beginning. In science, we call it the Big Bang. This is the theory that says everything in the universe was compressed to the point of a single, infinitesimally small particle. Something we would perceive as unity, and then rapidly exploded and expanded outwards and created everything in the universe. In religion,
I've heard this song before. This was really big back in YouTube back in the day. I think people mostly put it to Call of Duty footage though. What a throwback.
It is generally called creation, when God, or some all-knowing and all-seeing entity...
That's your depiction of God? By the way, I didn't cover it in my video. I'm sure he's going to bring it up here, but he makes a lot of mention about how Thoth, I think is how they pronounce it, which is an Egyptian deity of knowledge, is the source for a lot of his claims. And when you look up what that means and who Thoth is, it's a guy. It's just a guy that says that he's been inhabited by the spirit of Thoth, and so he can just make these claims. So not the most reliable of sources, but get out your bingo charts and see if he brings it up.
Entity, being the only one imbued with such power, created everything, presumably in 6 days, before taking a well-deserved day off. Let's take a step outside the box for a second and put these two sides of this cosmic coin into a Vesca Pisces. As usual, the two enemies that never got along actually have quite a lot in common.
What?
Both say that the universe started with unity and expanded outwards. Both say that light was an important factor in creation as well. If at the beginning of the universe we were one essence and somehow became everything, then both are saying the same thing, that we came from the same source. But wait a second.
And that's a very truncated way to put it. I mean, I'd say those are still pretty different. And a lot of theologians will try and posit that creation actually did happen through the Big Bang or something, kind of trying to make religious creation fit more in with modern science, but mixed results.
How can we make sense out of that statement, the universe is infinite, if we are measuring it from a sense of having a beginning? And this is what we're going to talk about now. If we value the pursuit of knowledge, we must be free to follow wherever that search may lead us. The free mind is not a barking dog to be tethered on a 10-foot chain.
Adlai Stevenson Jr. I wonder who this person is. Look him up. Former United States Ambassador to the United Nations. This is a regular guy. Fair enough. Yeah, this quote is true to an extent. You know, you want to be open-minded, but not have your mind opened to such a degree that it falls out of your skull. You do want a bit of skepticism. You do want a bit of credence to your claims. You want to back these things up. You know, I do my best to research the things that I'm looking into and try and get a correct presentation. I know I'm not always going to be good at research, but I do my best. I'm not just going to make random claims without any critical thought. That would be bad. That's what you'll see a lot here.
Today, I want to talk about two specific energies that can be expressed through this image. The energy that flows here is male and female energy.
Again, with the male and female energy. I don't know where this comes from. Quick note, quick preface. I do want to keep the character, the moth character that you see on screen right now, separate from the person behind the channel running all the technical stuff. I want a difference between the moth and the author. But I will say that the author, who actually works at a library, knows someone who works there that has a, I believe, sister or sister-in-law, I want to say sister, who buys into a lot of this stuff. And it's been interesting hearing the takes and opinions of people like this about how everything is male or female, and it's all like, oh, the curves are female and the straight lines are male, and you have female energy and male energy and blah blah blah. And the person who this individual is related to is transgender, so it is a little strange hearing these very I would say simplistic, maybe even the word I'm looking for, like it kind of enforces a gender binary on not just people but the world, and it's not the greatest way to look at things. You don't need to put a gender on everything that you see. That's just a bit reductive.
Male energy is focused, and female energy is creative and random.
Okay.
Neither of them is greater nor weaker than the other, and both can be extremely powerful when fully manifest.
I know that's another thing too, where they say the left brain versus the right brain is the male brain versus the female brain. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure they've kind of disproven that whole thing. Because I really wish there were people to talk to about this. If anyone's there, please say something. Otherwise, I'm just going to be ranting into the void, which I do anyways. But nice to talk to someone. But I know that they have done studies into the brain about how there's these different sections of the brain responsible for different things. And the general, like the cerebellum and the amygdala, all that stuff, they do have purposes, but different parts of the actual lobes aren't as focused as we'd like to believe. Like there's not like cordoned off sections specifically. It's kind of a more of a flowing goo of memory and habits and all of that, which I'll probably need to make a video researching the brain more on that. But the left brain versus the right brain thing, if I'm not mistaken, it's not a thing. It's not true. I mean, there is something to it, but the idea that it's logical left brain versus creative right brain or whatever they say, that part isn't true. But there is that video from here. There is a video by CGP Gray. You are too. Yeah, this one. That one kind of talks about what happens when the communication between your two sides of the brain are severed and kind of what happens. And that one is very interesting. And I don't know if I'd want to make a video on it since there's already a video on it, but it's definitely something I will probably cover in the future. Anyways, enough of that tangent.
Female energy is the land of unbridled possibilities, creative potential, and affecting the universe from within. Focused male energy takes direct roads from point A to point B. This energy can be as strong as a tank, accomplishing tasks and going where it needs to go with precision and without distraction. The important thing to know about this energy isn't how they move. I'm going to use some super basic sacred geometry to demonstrate this. This is the Fibonacci spiral. We're going to be talking a lot more about it when we dive into the topic. For now, all you have to know is that it starts at 1 and flows outward forever in a very specific way, and is present in all life everywhere.
What was that last one?
For now, all you have to know is that it starts at 1 and flows outward forever in a very specific way, and is present in all life everywhere.
Look, it's me. I'm on the left. Haha. Oh, I am out of water. Yeah, I don't know what this here is supposed to represent. The Fibonacci sequence does pop up in a lot of places, but I think these people kind of take it a bit too far. They kind of see it in places where it's not. Sort of a pareidolia-esque thing, which I will make a video on pareidolia as well, eventually. I have a whole schedule planned, and some of this stuff is on there, but I will be right back. I need to go get some water, so puro momento. Alright, let us continue.
As male energy flows through the
there we go.
spiral, it goes from base point to point, from here to here, to here to here. It doesn't curve, it just goes straight where it needs to be. Female energy, however, would flow in the actual spiral. It would go around, going in and around outside all of the lines, but still getting to the same or similar results.
Yeah, it's that thing of curves are feminine and straight lines are male. Which, again, is just...
This is the graphic representation of how it flows, but it also acts in the same way. From this understanding, you can see how we use these energies in our lives. It's the difference between driving straight to work and being on schedule all the time, and taking the scenic route because it's a more pleasant ride, even if it means being late.
Well, you wouldn't want to be late to work. That would get you fired. That's not a good thing. You want to take a scenic route, do it when you're not having to go to work.
It's baking a cake strictly by what it says in the cookbook, and putting it together with what just feels right.
Putting a cake together with what just feels right might not be the best idea. I mean, it can work. A lot of cooking is just playing by ear, but for the love of God, don't put onion in your cake. Don't do that.
It's getting that promotion for working the hardest, and getting that promotion for coming up with the best ideas. Here's a relatable example. It's the difference between Inception and Sucker Punch, both about dreams.
Inception and Sucker Punch. I think I saw Sucker Punch a while ago. I still haven't seen Inception. Sucker Punch was a really...
But one of them being the masculine story of professional men just doing their no-nonsense work, trying to get the job done, and the other being the feminine story that was creative and random and, according to many, didn't make much sense.
That's true.
Both male and female energy, like the chakras, have their own traits. Male energy is linear, analytical, strategic, and practical. However, when male energy is constricted, it is very blundering and confrontational, and what tends to occur is not seeing all sides of a situation, or not being open to any other possibility.
PC versus Mac. PS3 versus Xbox. I just say PlayStation instead of Xbox. Anyways.
Ability other than the one being pursued. You can see a lot of that in today's society. Most commonly, we call it being closed-minded. Female energy, on the other hand, moves in curves. It does not stay inside the lines. It is creativity and movement and expression and emotion. It can do anything and go anywhere, but it has trouble sticking to schedule.
Not a good picture.
If constricted, it can get out of its flow, running rampant between emotions and mood swings and ideas. The creativity could get jumbled and come out as an out-of-control mess. We don't have this widespread issue in today's society, and it has a lot to do with our brain hemisphere.
There it is. The left versus right brain. The left brain is supposed to be more logical and right brain is supposed to be... Let me just look this up. Is left and right brain real? Is left and right Twix the same? I would imagine so. Actually, I just want to see this. They're not the same. Left Twix has a crunchy cookie base with smooth caramel and creamy chocolate. Right Twix has a crisp cookie base with chewy caramel. That's the same thing. Okay. I hate. I don't even like candy. Yes, left and right are real. The idea that people with the left brain and right brain is a myth. Their dominance theory has proven to be more human neuroscience. So this is in 2013, around when this video came out. So they did know even back then, and just kind of went with it still. Yeah, that sounds about right. All right. Back for the chat. This is not accurate. You don't have to be a dude to be logical. You don't have to be a woman to be creative. Lord knows I'm either.
Hemispheres. We're going to look at that in a moment. One big difference between the two is that male energy looks at parts and female energy looks at wholes. Before I go on, I want to make...
Female energy looks at wholes, huh? Female energy looks at holes. We're gonna move on.
This clear. Male and female energy has very little to do with sexual orientation. Like, it's in the mix, but it's not a fundamental part of the energy itself. For example, if you look at the shape of male and female bodies, men have straighter bodies.
I was gonna make a joke about this, and then he actually did it, of like how people draw bodies to be like stick figures, and not all bodies are like this.
Women have curvier bodies. We'll probably come back to this in a lesson down the road. Okay, brain hemispheres. We have two of them, and if you remember what you learned in grade 10 biology, this will be familiar. The left brain is the male energy side of the brain. It is orderly.
I am the left brain. I am a scientist, a mathematician. I love the familiar. I categorize. Again, this is not real. This is not a real thing.
Statistical, logical, and mathematical. It sees things in straight lines, rational and practical. The right brain is the female energy side of the brain.
Yearning, sensuality. Is that a martini glass? I mean, it looks neat, but again, it's just not a thing.
It is our creative side, a free spirit. It is passion and experience of taste and feeling, movement and art. As is the same with the energy. The left brain cannot make sense out of the right brain. You cannot put feelings and expressions within boxes. They must be felt to be truly experienced. The right brain, too, cannot make sense about how the left brain understands things. Okay, so as a species, we are primarily left-brained. Well, incredibly left-brained.
About 90% of people are left-brain dominant. Do you have a source for this claim? Actually, let's check the description. Are there any sources? No. There is not. Very unlucky.
This basically means that, as a species, we essentially have a male energy imbalance. There is way too much of it. It is dominant and is constricting on the female side of the brain. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's kind of a blessing in disguise, but we have to talk about some other things first. Everything in the universe is geometric, whether it's people, trees...
Jesus. Why does this guy... What is going on with the recording? It sounds different, and the microphone is having like a staticky, stuttery thing now. Can this guy just not... Is he not recording? I'd imagine he's not recording all in the one go. The very least you could do is just put a noise gate or something. And I know how to do that.
Trees, cats, planets, solar systems, stars, you name it. Anything in the universe can be measured on a geometric scale.
Well, yeah. You can measure anything with a ruler or a clock. That's what... The measurements came after, not before. It's not that everything is... Not everything can be measured. It's everything is measurable. Like, you can measure things because that's what we invented the measurements for. That's a stretch.
Having said that, it's important to note that creation is also geometric. What we're going to be looking at today is the pattern of creation. Essentially, what...
This is the flower of life. Let's see if he... again, I didn't find anything about it on the quantum scale, but maybe he'll go... We're only 8 minutes into this thing. How long has this stream been going? I don't even know. I'm scared to...
What this means is that everything in the universe comes out of this single pattern. I'm not making this up. This single image will change everything.
You're not making this up. All right, let's see what he has to say. Maybe this is the answer I'm looking for. Maybe he'll explain.
When I mentioned in Lesson 5 that the ancient Egyptians and even more ancient civilizations knew about it...
It's the ancient civilization. And Egypt did not just... we'll get to this. We'll save it for the end.
A deeper, basic understanding of the universe. This is the flower of life, and it is also the creation pattern of everything in existence. Even non-tangible things, emotions, thoughts, music in its entire spectrum, everything comes from this image.
Okay, how?
Okay, so there are 13 information systems that comes out of the flower of life. Today, I'm going to show you how physical reality can manifest.
Okay, so he's linking the periodic table to the flower of life. Interesting. Let's see.
Itself, which is just one of the 13 systems. In future lessons, we will look at more. It's also important to note that at first it may not make sense. I ask that you do not choose immediately to shut this out, and just watch with an open mind, and try and see this in a new way. Also,
I mean, I am watching it with like, okay, let's hear him out, but if you give me a claim and it's like, can't back it up, there's not much I can do for you, buddy.
I want to tell you that by learning about sacred geometry simply by observing, you are absorbing only a very minuscule amount of information. If you really want to learn more, you must begin to draw it yourself. I kid you not, when you do this, you begin to see things in a new way. You begin to understand why things are done in the way that they are done. Promise. The flower of life...
If you draw the shapes, you'll get a better understanding. I think the only thing that will make you understand this more than the video is by drawing something. It's more of a breath of a certain substance. Catch my drift.
Life was known around the world in ancient times. It was found in Ireland, Turkey, Israel, Egypt, China, Greece, Germany, India, and Iceland. It's also
I do remember that they made mention that it was found in a bunch of archaeological sites. I couldn't find anything specific.
The flower of life was known around the world in ancient times. It was found in...
Okay. It's a flower pattern.
Ireland, Turkey.
Yeah, I'd say that's... Yeah.
Israel.
Yeah.
Egypt, China.
That one's a little bit more of a stretch, but...
China, Greece, Germany, India.
I wish you would link where he found these sites from, because I couldn't find anything on this.
India and Iceland. It's also been recorded to have been found in England, Tibet, Japan.
Wait, are you not going to show the images for this?
Japan, Sweden, Lapland, the Yucatan, and I think...
You didn't show any... Why did the other sites get images, but these ones didn't?
14 other places. This thing is everywhere. Not only that, but everywhere around the world it has the same name, the flower of life. Now,
everywhere calls it the flower of life? I'd be interested in seeing more on that.
To understand the flower of life, first we have to talk about how it's formed. This could get incredibly complex, so I'll try and keep it simple. Imagine consciousness, or spirit, floating in a void.
Right eye of Horus, not literally. Okay.
Which means it's nothingness, and then spirit. No physical body or mind, just spirit, and that's it. Then blackness, essentially nothing, all around the spirit, for infinite. Spirit decides to do something, so it expands its consciousness all around itself as far as it can go without moving. It creates a sphere around itself. This is the first circle in the flower of life. Then, spirit has an awareness of what's around itself in 360 degrees. It moves to the very edge of the sphere anywhere and repeats what it did the first time. It creates this image, which also creates the Vesica Pisces. Within the Vesica Pisces is a vast and incredible amount of knowledge about width, proportion, depth. Also comes the square roots of 2, 3, and 5, which are all numbers.
Yeah, so trigonometry.
Numbers that go on forever. But even more interestingly, comes geometric information about light. We'll talk about that in a moment. Now, spirit has no choice but to do it again. Spirit is flawless, and therefore it will move flawlessly, creating the next circle either here or here, exactly one radius away from the other circle next to it. Every time spirit moves another sphere, more and more knowledge comes out of the image that is created.
What's the knowledge? Just making circles? I don't really see how this is very... I mean, it's pretty looking, but it's not a lot of knowledge that comes from just drawing circles. Unless you're like 3, I guess.
The first complete image to be formed is this. It has 2 names, the seed of life, or the Genesis pattern, and for good reason. Now, let's look at the book of Genesis for a second. Each of these movements, or creations of circles, can be seen as another day. On the first movement...
Oh, math. Yes, math. It scares them, just like it did with Lovecraft. And in both cases, they saw math and were scared of it and made unimaginable horrors from the numbers. Oh, no.
The second sphere, it created knowledge about not only mathematical proportions, but light. The first sentence of Genesis says, "The earth was without form and void, and that the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." In the very next sentence, God says, "Let there be light." The key here is in the order. The movement happened first, then light happened immediately after. Well, but what about the waters? Well, you have to remember, the Bible has been changed over time a lot. The ancient Egyptians would say that the way our modern Bibles begin creation is impossible, especially if you think about it from...
Wait, how did you know what the ancient Egyptians would be saying about the modern Bible, though? Did you ask? Did you ask one of them? This Thoth again? This thought?
From a physics point of view, imagine a dark, infinite space that goes on forever and ever in all directions. You're just floating there with nothing. You can't really fall, but where would you fall to? From a purely physics or mathematical point of view, motion itself, or kinetic energy, is absolutely impossible in a void. You can't even rotate, because motion cannot become real unless there is one other object in the space around you. So the ancient Egyptians would say that before God moved upon the face of the waters, it would first have to create something to move relative to. So, Genesis pattern, after 3 spheres, you get the Holy Trinity. Another interesting one, it says in many Bibles of the world, not just the Christian Bible, that on the 4th day of Genesis, exactly 1/2 of creation was completed. Starting from the first motion, exactly 1/2 of the circles were formed on the 4th day. 5th day of Genesis, 6th circle, more information, and then on the 6th day, a geometric miracle takes place. The last circle forms a...
Hello, Indiana lore. Are we only 11 minutes in? Because I pause a lot and talk a lot. I'm really becoming a streamer that's really dragging this on. I don't want to just sit here and go, wow, crazy, whoa. I want to look at what he's talking about because... And the reason I'm watching this is because on the surface it sounds like an interesting story. I want to know if there's anything interesting here that I can take away. But so far it's coming across more that, look at this shape. Now let me contrive a meaning from this shape. This is real. Oh, okay.
A complete 6-petaled flower. This is what many earlier Bibles meant when they said, "In the beginning there were 6." Our Bible even said creation was formed in 6 days, and this fits exactly. This is the pattern of Genesis, and so it's called the Genesis pattern. It's also the beginning of the creation of the universe that we live in. These original movements of spirit are really important, but now let's look at something even cooler. Another image that comes out of this pattern is this. It's called the Tree of Life. Many
Back. I mean, yeah, you can get the pattern from that, but you're kind of missing this circle here which I know some trees of life put in, but a bit of a contrived pattern. A little bit. You're definitely missing some spots. Yes, hello, Polish cow. I've heard your song. It's quite the bop. They put it on a cactus and it freaked out an old lady. That's real. Wait, I want to look up tangents. Polish grandma cow song cactus. I'm sure. Yeah, there it is.
Many people have started their holiday shopping already, and that includes families buying presents for their little ones.
One Brampton grandmother says she got quite a shock when a dancing cactus she bought sang a song with swear words and drug use. Pat Foran's got this one on Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Nathan and Michelle. This is a strange one. The cactus is sold online as an educational toy and sings songs in 3 languages, but one song in Polish talks about doing cocaine, depression, and uses profanities. The grandmother who bought it said the toy should not be for sale.
Did you all know that that's what the song was about? I've heard the English version of it, and very depressing time, but the beat goes hard. I mean, there's a lot of American songs that are like that too.
So this is supposed to be a singing cactus.
Anya Tanner of Brampton wanted to buy an educational toy for her granddaughter and found this dancing cactus on Walmart's website, selling for about $26. She ordered it, and when it arrived, she decided to listen to the songs, one in English, Spanish, and Polish.
It just happens that I'm Polish. And when I started listening to the song and I heard the words, I was in shock. I didn't know, like, what is this? Some kind of joke?
The song is by Polish rapper Sippies and has references to cocaine, drug abuse, suicide, and depression.
It's about taking 5 grams of cocaine and being alone. Something about he doesn't care. He lost the house already. There's nothing to live for. Very depressing song.
The cactus was sold months ago in Europe where other families noticed the lyrics. The Polish artist said he was unaware his song was being used and said he planned to take legal action against the Chinese manufacturer for using his song without permission.
It was a Chinese manufacturer. Yeah, go figure. This was 2 years ago. Yeah, it is, there's a little story about a cocaine cow for you. This is why we're only 11 minutes in. I go on a lot of tangents. You're gonna be here for a while. Anyways, back to the math.
Comes out of this pattern is this. It's called the Tree of Life. Many may recognize this as the Jewish or Hebrew
Another tangent coming. I wonder, because I feel like this kind of looks like a Necron symbol. I really need to, maybe someday I'll go into Warhammer lore. Didn't know about the grandma though. Yeah, I think I saw it in a Discord channel meme, which was funny. But yeah, a Chinese manufacturer put that song into a cactus, and then kids were hearing it, and this one person who could speak Polish was like, "Wait a minute, hold on a second. What is this? What's this all about?" Anyways, back to
Kabbalah. But the Kabbalah did not originate this image, and there is proof. The Tree of Life does not belong to any culture, not even the Egyptians, who carved the Tree of Life on 2 sets of...
Really squinting my eyes here. I don't see the Tree of Life here. I see a tree pattern here, but the resolution is so small. I don't see any symbol here.
Of 3 pillars at Karnak Temple, Luxor, over 5,000 years ago. It's outside any race or religion. The Tree of Life does not belong to any culture, not even the Egyptians, who carved the Tree of Life on 2 sets of 3 pillars at Karnak Temple, Luxor, over...
Karnak Temple. Okay, that's the temple. Maybe if we look into images, we can find it. Is this what they're talking about? That doesn't fit the symbol at all. Resist? Which also does... That's just a tree. That's not the Tree of Life. That's... Oh, that was debunked.
Over 5,000 years ago. It's outside any race or religion, as with all of these images. They are patterns that are intimately connected with nature. You'll also notice that every circle on the Tree of Life is either the length or width of the Vesica Pisces. The second image beyond Genesis in the Flower of Life is the Egg of Life. This is formed during the second vortex motion. Upon its completion, it creates an image like this, a 3-dimensional shape that you can hold in your hand. If you were to connect their centers, you would see a cube. So what? Who cares? Well, the ancient Egyptians did, because they were concerned with creation, life, and death. They called this cluster of spheres the egg of life. You probably won't believe me just yet, but this shape is the...
I don't. I haven't found any documentation of Egypt talking about any of this stuff. So I'd be interested to hear where he got this from.
morphogenic structure that created your body.
I'm
Your
never gonna hear
entire
it.
physical existence is dependent on the egg of life structure, and everything about you was created from that form. Everything from your eye color to how long your fingers are. This is a whole lesson on its own, so let's move on for now.
Okay.
All around the world, the flower of life was always made the exact same way. See, this pattern can clearly go on forever. However, they always stopped after 19 circles. Why?
But they didn't. In the images that you showed prior, they did not stop at 9 circles. Did he? He showed it earlier. I can't remember where in the... This? Yeah, it was like around here. 1331.
Germany?
Yeah, this one has more than 13 circles. Or does it? 1, 2, 3. I don't know, but they don't look the same in all of them.
Of life. Today, I'm going to show you how physical reality can manifest itself, which is just one of the 13 systems found in Ireland, Turkey.
Yeah, this one is an obvious. This one does not have 13 circles. This one is like 7.
Israel, Egypt.
And this one's definitely not 13.
China, Greece, Germany.
That one. Yeah, they're not the same. You just made that up. You lied to me. You lied.
The egg of life. You probably won't believe me just yet, but this shape is the morphogenic structure that created your body. Your entire physical existence is dependent on the egg of life structure, and everything about you was created from that form. Everything from your eye color to how long your fingers are. This is a whole lesson on its own, so let's move on for now. All around the world, the flower of life was always made the
We've been here long enough for him to do something for you.
exact same way. See, this pattern can clearly go on forever. However, they always stopped after 19 circles. Why? Well, because they didn't want you to see what I'm about to show you. Back then, this image and knowledge was so sacred that they couldn't allow it to become common knowledge. It was appropriate at that time. However...
But if they didn't want it to be common knowledge, why did they put it everywhere? That doesn't make any sense. What?
Now we either use the information or fall further into darkness. In biology, all cells have a zona pellucida around the edge. These circles around the flower of life are the zona pellucida of the flower of life. You must remove these, then complete the spheres that were cut off by the zona pellucida. With one more step, you will have the secret. Finish the drawing, add the final missing circles, giving you this. This image is the fruit of life. This...
So they didn't want us... They hid all of this information from us so that we wouldn't add 6 more circles. I already know where he's going to go with this. He's going to go, well, with this shape, with the... Whatever he called it, the... Well, it wasn't a flower life. I don't remember. Whatever he calls it. If you connect all of the points, you get Metatron's cube. I'll be interested to hear what he says about Metatron, by the way. Which I might have messed up in saying that Michael and Metatron are the same entity. That might not be true. But from what I researched, they played similar enough roles that I assumed it was a translation thing. But I could be wrong.
Pattern of 13 circles is one of the holiest, most sacred forms in existence. It's called the fruit because it is the result, the fruit, from which the fabric of the details of the reality were created. Remember when we talked about male and female images in lesson 4? As you can see, this image is female. It has no straight lines. However, when you combine male lines with these female circles, something amazing happens.
Oh, there you go.
What you do is draw a straight line from the very center of every single circle to every other circle in this image. When you do this, you get an image which is known throughout the universe, everywhere, as Metatron's cube. It is one of the most important informational systems in the universe, one of the basic creation patterns in existence. So what is Metatron's cube? Well, anyone who has studied sacred geometry, or even regular geometry for that matter, knows that there are 5 unique shapes in the universe, and that they are crucial to understanding both regular and sacred geometry. They are
5 unique shapes? I mean, there's more than 5 shapes. I know he's going to be talking about the 5 platonic solids. I can see them here, but...
called the platonic solids. A platonic solid has certain characteristics by definition. First of all of its faces are the same size. For example, a cube, the most well-known platonic solid, has a square on every face, so all of its faces are the same size. Secondly, the edges of the platonic solids are all the same length. All edges of the cube are the same length. Third, it only has one size of interior angles between the faces. In the case of the cube, this angle is 90 degrees. And fourth, when put inside of a sphere, all of the points will touch the edge of the sphere perfectly. With that definition, there are only 4 shapes besides the cube that fit that description. So what are they? Well, we have the dodecahedron, the tetrahedron, the octahedron, the isosahedron, and the hexahedron. All of these shapes are found within Metatron's cube.
Yeah, true.
This knowledge is also where original alchemy came from. The ancient alchemists and great souls like Pythagoras, father of Greece, considered each shape to have an elemental aspect to them. The tetrahedron was considered fire, the cube was earth, the octahedron was air, the isosahedron was water, and the dodecahedron was ether. Ether, also known as prana, and tachyon energy are all the same thing. They extend anywhere and are accessible at any point in space, time, and dimension. This is the great secret of zero-point technology. The sphere...
What? No. Ether was what they said was holding up all of the stars and everything, and it's closer to gravity than it is energy. But no, ether is not behind 0-point energy. That's, again, I wish he would talk more about, well, I wish he would talk more about what he's talking about, but I know that he doesn't know what he's talking about, so there is nothing more to talk about, which is a shame, but I digress.
Fear is voidness. These 6 elements are the building blocks of the universe, and they create the qualities of the universe. To summarize, this is the first informational system that comes out of the fruit of life through Metatron's cube. In alchemy, they rarely discussed ether. I've read that in the Pythagorean school, if you even uttered the word dodecahedron outside of the school, they would kill you on the spot. That's how...
Okay, where do you get that from? I didn't come across that. They kill you if you say dodecahedron? Huh? Ooh. Okay.
Sacred the shape was. 200 years later, when Plato was alive, he would discuss it, but only very carefully. This is because the dodecahedron is near the outer edge in your energy field, and is the highest form of consciousness. There's quite a bit more here, but I don't think I can go much further on it right now.
Of course you can't. Of course. No, we wouldn't want to hear the most interesting part of Greeks killing people for saying a shape. No, we can't talk about that. Oh, this is frustrating. I want to hear the story. Give me the story. That's what I'm here for.
Anyways, recognize this? The periodic table of elements? Every single element on this table has a geometric relation to one of these 5 shapes. Modern scholars ridiculed this idea until the 1980s, when Professor Robert Moon at the University of Chicago demonstrated that the entire periodic table of elements, literally everything in the physical world, is based on these same 5 forms. In fact...
Robert Moon... Actually, hold on. What is that?
When Professor Robert Moon at the University of Chicago demonstrated that the entire periodic table of elements, literally everything in the physical world, is based on these same...
That's not a platonic solid. What is that? It's very clearly not a platonic solid because it has 2 different shapes in it. Why are you putting that there? That's... Okay. Anyways, let's look up Robert Moon. Table. This is probably a bit of a biased one. Where does it talk about Robert Moon? Up. I don't see anything here. Yeah, I don't know where this comes from. I can't find anything on it right now. Oh well.
In 5 forms. In fact, throughout modern physics, chemistry, and biology, the sacred geometric patterns of creation are being rediscovered. Another example is the egg of life that I showed you earlier. Hopefully that will help you to understand just how incredible and important of a discovery this truly is.
You didn't show anything though.
We have 5 platonic geometries that form everything in creation, but we don't have a hexagonal shape. If we look at the flower of life, we see that its ultimate basic form is in a 6-pointed shape, called a hexagon. Want to see where else hexagons form in life?
Bees. Oh, snowflakes. Oh, there's the bees. Yeah. Well, those aren't hexagons. That one right there is a pentagon right there. That one's a cube. Salt flat? Well, yeah, the hexagon is the... Yeah, that one's a pentagon. Yeah, this was a bad example. Deep water trace fossils. Yeah, the hexagon shows up a lot, but that's more for chemistry. Yeah, that one's a pentagon right there. These aren't all hexagons. There's a video by CGP Grey that talks about hexagons as well, which, in my opinion, of a better exploration of hexagons, and something that I will definitely be researching more and do later. But yeah, this is not very serious cloud. Okay. Wait, hold on. Did I just glaze right by that? Yeah. Go on. Was the... No, it was the one after this one. Crop circle. Oh, hexagons appear in crop circles. You know what else appears in crop circles? Fucking Yoda. It doesn't mean anything. Crazy fish.
We have all of these hexagons, and yet there is no platonic solid that is formed with a hexagon. So, what gives? Well, I want to introduce the vector equilibrium, which was coined by Buckminster.
These aren't hexagons, though. That's a triangle and that's a square.
Fuller. It is actually formed from 3 two-dimensional hexagons that swivel around.
3 two-dimensional hexagons. What?
Around each other, and its basic shapes that make it up are an equilateral triangle and the square. These are the 2 smallest shapes that you can make with straight lines, and together they balance at each other's corners to create the perfect shape. Why is it the perfect shape?
Cuboctahedron. But that's not a platonic solid, though. That breaks the rules of the platonic solid.
Shape. The reason is that every single line which is connected in the shape is the same distance away from every other point, including the very center of the shape itself. Not even the platonic solids have that definition, which also makes this the most stable.
That just doesn't make it a platonic solid. That doesn't make it more special. That's just not... It just doesn't follow the definition.
Shape and polyhedron, and the basis of the 3-dimensional flower of life. Finally, the only reason it's not a platonic solid is because it has both squares and triangles within it.
Yeah,
Platonic
exactly.
solids are platonic because each face is the same, which makes me think that other shapes must exist that are balanced between 2 different shapes.
He's showing the... Yeah, there's shapes that aren't exactly platonic solids that use... I've seen these before. I forget what they're called. But, yeah, they're just neat to look at. They're not special.
Shapes as well, and construct everything in the universe. Now, in the comments or end credits, depending on where you're watching this, I posted links to a TED Talks video by Garrett Lisi, a particle physicist.
Where'd you post the links at? Because I looked in your description. There is nothing. Oh, is this... Oh, there's the sources. They're at the website. Come on! Really? Really? Oh. Okay, so much for that.
Who tells us of an amazing discovery in the scientific field. I want to show you and talk about his findings, and then we'll look at dimensions after that. Okay, so Garrett has discovered that by examining coral, they found that each coral head has thousands of different polyps. These polyps are constantly budding and branching into genetically identical neighbors. Through performing heat experiments on these polyps, they were able to find that every single polyp is part of a whole, a single unit of being, but each one is experiencing its own reality individually. From their findings with the coral, they were able to look at quantum mechanics. See, the mathematics of quantum mechanics shows us exactly how our universe works, and we see that everything in the reality is just continually branching into new possibilities, just like the coral. As humans, we are individually experiencing only one of these possibilities, much like the individual polyps. What physics is telling us is that everything comes down to geometry and the interactions between elementary particles. Things can happen only when things are perfectly balanced. So Garrett starts showing us some subatomic particles and the things that make up electrons and protons and neutrons. We always consider these to be the smallest particle, but we never think about what's creating them. Garrett demonstrates to us how the particles that create point particles really work. He shows that when you plot them out in how they move, this is what they look like. At the tiniest scale, scales of the universe and how it works is very beautiful. Now, look at this. This is one of the ways that these charges branch off from each other. As you can see, it flows in a hexagonal pattern, the same pattern that we found in the expanded flower of life. Then, if you rotate this pattern in 6-dimensional charge space, you see it forms yet another pattern. Many of you will recognize this as the shape of the Star of David, but its true name is the star.
Is this what they meant by the Jews control the world? But, okay. Yeah, it forms shapes because that's how charges work.
Tetrahedron, which maps perfectly over the fruit of life. This entire pattern created by the particles is mapped across over precise places on a 200-dimensional spherical shape scientists have called E8, of which also has a geometric shape. By rotating that shape as well, you can see how there are nearly infinite possibilities as to how these elementary particles interact with each other.
This is the problem with sacred geometry, is that it's a lot of seeing patterns. Humans are very, 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 very good at finding patterns, especially people on the spectrum. You guess where I come in on that? But humans are good at seeing patterns to the point that they will see patterns where there is no pattern. This is where you get things like pareidolia from, where you see faces where there aren't faces. Or theories that this was to help since I'm not a human, your early ancestors see predators hiding in grass. So seeing like a lion's face in grass, even though it's disguising itself, you're able to see that. Wait, have we been going on for an hour? Is that what that means down there? Yeah, we've been here for a while. Well, I guess I'm getting my time out of it, but they're really good at detecting patterns, and this is a case of finding a pattern and extrapolating it in a way that doesn't really say anything. It's an interesting story, but there's no secret mystery behind it. It's just to look at. I wish there was some magic behind it. I'm doing my best to find esoteric knowledge. I'm doing my best to find things that are out of the beaten path that could be more mystical, but I'm going into it with a skeptical eye instead of just taking everything I'm told without any critical thinking. If I can find anything that's interesting, of course I'd want to learn it, but so far I'm not finding anything very credible.
Details of the reality begin to take form. Now, as this shape is rotating in 8 dimensions, you can see a myriad of different patterns here. Look at this one in particular. This looks a lot like Metatron's cube, doesn't it? At the heart of particle physics is pure, beautiful geometry. By now, you probably can begin to see where sacred geometry falls into this. Where do these shapes originate? Do they just come into being at random? Or does the first shape come from somewhere else? In Lesson 6, we talked about the flower of life, the original, perfect geometric symmetry that created the universe. This shape, as we learned, is not only the root of all mathematical proportion, light, the platonic solids, but is also the source of every musical system in the universe, including systems both used and unknown to
is they going to talk about the chromatic scale, because there's 12 and then 13 is a new one?
Modern man. It is also the source of energy patterns and, well, everything. It all comes from...
Oh, no, he just skips over it.
This is what is at the heart of what's forming every subatomic particle formation, and it probably goes at least a few levels deeper than what Garrett is showing us.
Okay.
Phi, also known as the golden ratio, or golden mean, is a very simple relationship. If you had a rod and were going to put a mark on it, only 2 places would mark the phi ratio, which is here or here. The length of A plus B is equal to the length of C. This ratio is 1.6180339 and continues on forever. If you multiply the length of C with phi, it will create the exact same image, only bigger. C and D is equal to E. This ratio could then span on forever, going smaller and smaller or bigger and bigger forever. This ratio is infinite. It has no beginning and no end. It is also believed that phi is the mathematical root of all other sequences. See, every mathematical sequence in existence needs a minimum of 3 numbers to figure out the sequence. Phi only needs 2. It is the only one. Similar to how the circle and square are the source of all shape, but we'll get to that later on. The next thing that you need to know is that this ratio is found in all life everywhere. Sort of. By sort of, I mean it's really Fibonacci, but we'll look at that in a moment. Look at your hand. Not only does each finger have its own ratio moving up each finger, which is phi to the next bone.
Yeah, I don't think that's the phi ratio precisely, and fingers can be different lengths as well. I don't think... Again, it's a pattern that's not really there.
But it oscillates back and forth from the tallest finger to the thumb. You wonder why the human hand is like that? It's based on phi.
No, the human hand is based on that because evolution worked. There are people that have the same length of fingers. There are creatures that have very different fingers. This isn't that deep.
This relationship is found throughout the body in various ways, moving up the arms and legs, in your face, throughout the entire body. This is a Greek statue that accurately represents this. The Greeks were very precise when they made their art, because they understood phi, Fibonacci, and the importance of these sequences.
Or they could just be modeling it off a person. They're not using geometry. They're just kind of modeling it off what they know about anatomy.
The Romans took over Greece, you could see the perfection in statues just completely disappear. I'm not saying the Romans were bad artists. They just didn't measure everything to the...
So, little blocks. Copied me. See the difference? Do you guys see the difference between these two statues? Because I certainly don't. Other than one's like a little smoother than the other. But they look essentially like the same statue.
The same caliber that the Greeks did. Here's the phi ratio in butterflies.
Okay.
You can see this ratio everywhere, from the wing size to the body to the antennas.
Yeah, but butterflies have different size of wings as well. Not every butterfly looks like this. Ask me how I know.
All phi ratios. Here's dragonflies. It's the same story. Phi runs along the entire body, and the relation to the body and the wings. Here it is in frogs. Phi is found throughout the body in relation to the head, to the arms, to the fingers, and so on. Well, what about fish? You'd think they wouldn't be found in fish. Well, here's 3 kinds of fish. Once again, the ratios are consistent. It doesn't just apply to these...
Doesn't make any sense.
These creatures, though, regardless of what mammal, insect,
Oh wait, I missed a little bit of the chat. It's been over an hour and I still can't figure out if this is complicated math, conspiracy theories, or both. It's both. It's math that they're kind of taking out of context to say, oh, since there's a pattern, that must mean there's something deeper behind this. This must be the key to the universe, which there really isn't. But they'll say that there is because human brains love patterns. So if they find a pattern and see it everywhere, they think that there's some greater meaning behind it when it's all just either coincidence, just complete, it's just not there and they're forcing it onto it, or it's for another reason, mainly evolution.
Avian, plant, or living creature of any kind, you will find this ratio.
That creature wasn't alive.
There's a reason for this, but we'll get to that in a moment. Let me show you the importance we used to place on this golden ratio. In ancient times, we built many structures based on phi because we understood divine proportion. This is the pagoda of Yakushiji Temple in...
I would... This looks like... Hold on. What is that? Was it not? No. Or what was that thing in Dead Space that it looked like this? Am I missing something? I need to play Dead Space sometime. I still haven't played it. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, anyways, moving on.
In Japan, it's built with these same mathematics, from the doorway to the ball on top of the temple. It is a structural embodiment of the proportions that all life holds. The Parthenon in Greece also has the exact same mathematical structure, but even more. I recommend watching Nova's Secrets of...
Yeah, but that was probably just for structural integrity, if anything.
The Parthenon, if you wish to learn more about this.
Oh, that explains it. You must be getting on to something more than me, because I don't know what the hell they're talking
Because
about.
the stuff that they find is really cool. The Great Pyramid in Giza also has these proportions. They're incredibly precise, perfect in every way. You'd think that by building these structures using the logical and mathematical proportions so carefully, that they would hinder the creativity behind these buildings, but they really don't. In fact, the left brain understanding all of this can even enhance creativity if used correctly. It makes me wonder about all of the world-famous buildings of the modern world. Could phi be a large factor in what makes them stand out?
Oh, that's probably just architecture. Cool. Makes sense.
Let's move on to our next sequence, which is called Fibonacci. Now, the Fibonacci sequence is life's way of creating the golden mean. Allow me to explain. This sequence is continually made from adding the previous number to the current. 1 and 1 is 2. 2 and 1 is 3. 3 and 2 is 5. 5 and 3 is 8. You can see how it continues. Now, what most people don't know about Fibonacci is that it actually continually strives closer and closer to the phi ratio. By dividing the current number into the last, you can see this happening. 1 into 1 is 1. Well, that's not close at all. 2 into 1 is 2. This time it's over 5, but closer. 3 into 2 is 1.5, which is under, but closer still. 5 into 3 is 1.666. This time it's over, but even closer. Continuing with that, it's 1.6, and then 1.625, 1.615384, 1.619048, and so on. It continually oscillates over and under the phi ratio, never quite making it there, but continuing on closer and closer every time, until eventually you can't even tell the difference. Because phi is an infinite number, this sequence will go on forever. Let's look at some spirals in nature, another way that phi and Fibonacci can manifest. This is a nautilus shell. Many people will say it's phi, but it's really Fibonacci. See how when it's in its earliest form, it's crude, not smooth or anything? One look and you can tell that's not phi. But as it goes out farther and farther, it gets closer and closer to phi. It becomes a nearly perfect phi spiral by the time it's all the way out here. This also happens with sunflowers, pine cones, and many plants in nature. In many cases, such as the pine cones and sunflowers, it flows in a double spiral or more, much like the spiraling arms of a galaxy. From the microcosm to the macrocosm, spirals are always present. So phi is basically source, or spirit, or God, in a mathematical way.
Okay, that was a jump. Just, yeah, we can see this pattern across nature, and plants will grow in this way. So, essentially, this number is God. Huh? Again, you can see that the leaps and conclusions taken here don't make sense.
Way of thinking. The math of God. Don't forget that this sequence is an intimate part of nature itself. I'm going to call it source. It is the source of all mathematical sequences, and all life in existence grows based on phi. However, phi has no beginning and no end. Life doesn't know how to deal with that. It's like source says, go and replicate this, and life says, we don't know how. Because life doesn't know how to create from something that has no beginning. So it creates the Fibonacci sequence instead, which has a beginning, but starts out crude, very basic, and then continually goes closer and closer to source, becoming more divine every step. It does take steps too, which actually has quite a bit to do with evolution.
We're going to get to this part here where we're flying. I'd like to see that part. Wait, oh, this one's just put off into space now.
Let's move on for now, though. The only other sequence you need to know for this is binary sequences. This is a sequence like 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. We're just doubling the last number instead of adding it to the previous one. We're all very familiar with this. Binary sequences are found in life as well. For example, mitotic cell divisions are binary. We go from being a single cell being to having over 100 trillion cells in only 46 divisions. Binary sequences are also how computers work, by turning on and off chips. Computing at its core, anyways, is binary.
Yeah.
This is how a polar graph usually looks, with 36 radial lines in 10-degree increments representing the 360 degrees. Then, concentric circles are drawn, each with the same distance away as the last, creating 8 equal demarcations as the one before, counting the inside circle as 1. Think about what this represents too. It's a 2-dimensional drawing of a 3-dimensional sphere, one of the sacred forms, by projecting it onto a flat surface. This is also called a shadow form, and casting shadows is a sacred way to obtain information. Also, a polar graph has both straight, male lines, and circular, female lines, both male and female energies interacting at once. If you plot a golden mean spiral at 0 degrees on the polar graph, it will loop all the way around before hitting 0 again, exactly at the 8th circle. You'll find that this golden mean line crosses 5 specific places as it goes out. These places are where the female circular lines meet the male lines. It crosses at 120 degrees.
Looking a little rough there. That doesn't seem... That's just...
190 degrees, 240 degrees, 280 degrees, and then it jumps to 360, or back at 0, depending on how you look at it. What's interesting about this is that it creates both a binary and Fibonacci sequence. Looking at the radial increments from the center, it crosses at 1, 2, 3, 5, and 8. Well, that's Fibonacci, but it also crosses at 2, 4, and 8. Well, that's a binary sequence. We're going to look at the binary sequence in particular, though, because what you find is very cool. If you draw lines from the outermost circles on the lines where the binary sequence was formed, you get this image. It is an equilateral triangle. If you continue the spiral outward, it would continue to hit these exact same places and continue to form larger equilateral triangles. Let's divert yet again to look at something very interesting. There was a man named Keith Critchlow who discovered something very important to understanding the geometry of music. First, he drew a straight line through an equilateral triangle, and then he measured from the middle of the center line and drew a straight line up to the top edge and back down to the bottom corner. Then he did the same, but passed through the center line of the top and back down again. He did this yet again on the other side. You can keep doing this on either side as well. By drawing this funny little form, he discovered something of great importance. He writes, continuing in this way, each successive proportion will be the harmonic mean between the previous proportion and the total length, and all of these proportions will be musically significant. 1/2 being the octave, 2/3 being the fifth, 4/5 being the major third, 8/9 being the major tone or step, and 16/17 being the half tone or step. In other words, he discovered the geometries of music, or at least one aspect of them. Then he tried measuring it in a different way, starting at a different point of the center line. At 3/4, he found the measurements were 1/7, 1/4, 2/5, 4/7, 8/11, and 16/19. All of these numbers are musically significant. This is very interesting. It means that the harmonics of music are somehow related to the proportions of the central line moving through a tetrahedron. Back to the polar graph, you can see that this drawing has a much greater value all of a sudden. Not only that, but it becomes even easier to make your measurements thanks to the polar graph itself. You can just draw a straight line through the drawing on the graph, and it will give you the center line. This information has been taken light years beyond what I just showed you though. A research team found that you can draw these lines not only from the center, but from any nodal points inside the upper half of the triangle, and you will come up with all known harmonics in existence. Basically, this means that anywhere the straight line and curved lines on the polar graph cross from 0 to 120 degrees and start making the pattern, you will come up with all known harmonic systems. Not only the Western keyboard, but the Eastern, and even many unknown systems that have never been used. As I'm not a musician, there's not much more I can show you related to this, but I would...
Yeah, I didn't understand any of that, I'll be real. I don't have any commentary on this, I don't know what that meant.
love to see what a musician could really do with this knowledge. Remember when we talked about spirals in nature? They often travel in twos. Usually this is male and female. So on this polar graph...
Much more a quarter of the way in. I need to stop pausing as much and get through this whole thing.
You're going to copy nature. You don't just plot one spiral, you have to plot two. When you do that, it gives you this image, which is a star tetrahedron inside of a sphere. We mentioned this in lesson 7, and this image
Why are we going over the Star of David?
Is more commonly known as the Star of David. Do you remember the face on Mars? NASA obviously...
Oh, brother. Do you, chat, know the face on Mars? I can show you the face on Mars. Get a closer look at, like, oh, look, it's a face. And then you get a little closer, and that's what it looks like. Does that look like a face to you? Does this look like a face to you? Now, if it looked like that, I would be a little more concerned. But no, this is just... It was just the shading of it. It's not an actual face. But let's see what he has to say.
Obviously tells us that it's just a random formation on the surface of the planet. But right next to the face, there are also a few pyramids and other anthropomorphic structures. I know what you're thinking. Why on earth would I bring that up all of a sudden? Well, Richard Hoagland and his colleagues have spent a long time researching and deciphering a message on the surface of the red planet. Want to know what that message was? It was a star tetrahedron inscribed in a sphere. Holy balls, right?
Holy
it's
balls.
Pretty crazy and very eye-opening now that we have this information about what this really means.
I don't think there's much to this. I think it's just a pattern.
Inside the star tetrahedron, another one fits perfectly. We can continue to put more and more star tetrahedrons inside or outside
That's
of
how
the
math
other star
works.
tetrahedrons. The same way the golden mean spiral can wrap around the polar graph infinitely big or infinitely small. You'll notice that this smaller tetrahedron also happens to fit perfectly around this sphere. Well, check this out. If you put this same size sphere centered on the point of every single star tetrahedral point, guess what suddenly reveals itself?
Yeah, you already made that. Ow, my eyes. Okay.
It's back. According to the Egyptians, this is one of the holiest, most sacred forms in existence. Of course, we already learned one of its informational systems in lesson 6, and what you just saw was the second.
Yeah, I can see why this movie's an hour and a half. You're just saying the same thing over and over.
Only in reverse order. What this means is that all of the information of music, harmonics, sound, and spirals come out of this image. Not only that, but light and the dimensional levels work in the same way as harmonics, which we've already discussed in lesson 2, 7, and 9, meaning that the geometric information about light and...
Let's say...
this image. Not only that, but light and the dimensional levels work in the same way as harmonics, which we've already discussed in lesson 2, 7, and 9.
Astral travel in fourth dimension from 9? I don't remember whether you mentioned that, but...
Meaning that the geometric information about light and dimensions are also related to this star tetrahedron pattern. So what you just saw was the second unraveling from the third rotational pattern of Genesis, the geometry at the heart of creation.
Okay.
Now we can start talking about dimensions. These wheels are some of the oldest symbols known. The only places that they've been found is on the ceilings of certain
the circle.
Very old Egyptian tombs.
So Martians are Jewish? Well, yeah, that's where they came from. Don't you know? I say that, but I do remember that he made this video about, yeah, there's these Martians that came from Mars to come to Earth when it was still forming. The natives of the Earth were spiritually enlightened, and they were feminine in energy. So they were like 12-year-old girls, and then the Martians were these male-brained war people that came to Earth, so they were like an old man. So these old men mixed with the young girls, and I go, what the fuck am I, what am I listening to? Oh, jeez.
They are always found in sets of 4 or 8, and nobody knows what they are. Even the most famous Egyptologists have no idea. But this is actually proof that the Egyptians not only understood the flower of life, but they lived it. Today, I'm going to show you what these wheels meant. And in future lessons, we will go over the details of this unraveling. There's a lot to cover before we get there, though. For the record, the unraveling looks like this. Yeah, it's a doozy. So on the walls with these wheels are drawings of 7 people with animal heads. They're called neiters, and each of them has an orangish red oval above its head. This is called the egg of metamorphosis. The neiters are showing us a time when we go through a certain state of resurrection, which is a rapid biological change into a different life form. Not the average type of resurrection, I know. As you can see here, they're changing directions 90 degrees, and in doing so, they're changing dimensions. See, the dimensional levels are separated by 90 degrees. Musical notes are separated by 90 degrees. The chakras are also 90 degrees. It's a number that continually appears. Probably at this point, we should get a...
If you just start walking up a wall, you'll enter another dimension, I guess.
Common understanding of what dimensions are, like 3rd dimension, 4th dimension, 5th dimension. What are we talking about here? Most people think of dimension in terms of time and space, the x, y, and z axis, with time becoming the 4th dimension. This is not what we...
But time isn't a 4th dimension. Like, it's not a spatial dimension. It doesn't fit the definitions of other dimensions. I am going to make a video on the fourth dimension eventually. And I can tell you right now, time is not the fourth dimension.
What we are talking about. What we're seeing as the various dimensional levels has more to do with music and harmonics than anything else. A piano has 8 white keys from C to C, which is the familiar octave, and in between there are 5 black keys. Together this creates what's called the chromatic scale, which is 13 notes, well actually 12, with the 13th being the first in the next octave. So from one C to the next is really 13 steps, not 8. This also correlates with the 7, 8, and 13 chakra system I mentioned in lesson 2. Keeping that in mind, I want to show you a sine wave. Sine waves correspond with light and the electromagnetic spectrum and the vibration of sound. We're all very familiar with this. In this entire reality we're in, every single thing is based on sine waves. There are no exceptions to this except for maybe spirit and void. Quantum physics and quantum mechanics looks at everything in the reality of one of 2 ways. You can look at anything, like the computer you're watching this video on, to be made up of tiny particles like atoms. Or you can forget about that idea completely and look at it as a vibration, a waveform, such as electromagnetic fields or even sound.
String theory.
If you look at it as atoms, the laws can be seen to fit that model. But if you look at it as waveforms, the laws can be seen to fit that model. Both of these systems come out of the flower of life, one being the one we just looked at, fruit of life to Metatron's cube and beyond, and the other being this beautiful mess of a picture. Just looking at it hurts my head. Everything in this world is a waveform, or can be seen as sound. All things, your bodies, planets, absolutely everything, are a waveform. If you choose this particular way of looking at reality, and then superimpose that view over the reality of the harmonics of music, we can begin to talk about dimensions. The dimensional levels are nothing but different base rate wavelengths. The only difference between this dimension and any other is the length of its basic waveform. It's just like a radio set. Turn the dial, you pick up a wavelength. It's the same with dimensions. If you were to change the wavelength of your consciousness, and in doing so change all of your body patterns to a wavelength different from this universe, you would literally disappear out of this world and reappear in the one you were tuned in. It's been theorized that the base...
Okay, how do you change the frequency of your consciousness? Do you have any examples of people doing that of recent? That would be interesting.
Wavelength that we're currently living in is 7.23 centimeters. There's a few reasons for this.
Wait, what? Let me go back on that.
Tuned in. It's been theorized that the base rate wavelength that we're currently living in is 7.23 centimeters.
The base rate length. The base rate wavelength is 7.23 centimeters, probably. What does that mean?
There's a few reasons for this. In a spiritual sense, the 7.23 wavelength is Om, the Hindu sound of the universe. Maybe that's why oming is such a powerful tool in meditation. Not only that, but if you were to take 100 people and measure the distance between their eyes, the average length is 7.23. Same with the distance from the tip of our chins to the tip of our noses, and the distance across our palms and between our chakras. This 7.
That doesn't sound right. What is the average distance between your eyes? 63 millimeters. Okay. What is 63 millimeters to... Oh, wait, no. If it was... Oh, wait, no, that's the pupillary distance. But what is the... between your 2 eyes? Human eyes are 2 inches apart. Okay. 2 inches, 2 centimeters. But 5 centimeters. So not 7 centimeters. That doesn't make much sense.
7.23 length is located throughout our bodies in various ways because we are emerged within this particular dimension. There's another reason as well. Bell Laboratories found this wavelength when they were setting up the microwave system around the United States. They found static in their system because they chose a wavelength just slightly longer than 7.23 for their system. In order to get rid of the static, they did something that we as a planet are still suffering from. They upped the power 50,000 times over what we would normally need, which created a very powerful field, so that the 7.23 wavelength would not interfere.
What?
It's for those reasons that I believe 7.23 is the wavelength of our dimension. As you go up in dimensional levels, the wavelength gets shorter and shorter, with higher and higher energy. As you go down in level,
Syrians, what? So just... None of this makes sense.
the wavelength gets longer and longer, with lower and lower energy.
Crystals
more
and
more
plants
dense.
are
Just as with the piano, there's a space between the notes, so that when you hit one note, there's a very definite place where the next note is. In this waveform universe we exist in, there's a very definite place where the next dimensional level exists. It's specific wavelength relative to this one. Most cultures in the cosmos have a basic understanding of this and understand how to change between dimensions. However, because of certain events that happened on Earth 13,000 years ago, we have all forgotten, but we're about to remember. So if we show each note in the chromatic scale as a circle, we have 13 circles. Each circle represents a white or black key, and the shaded circle at the end would be the 13th note that begins the next octave. This circle here represents the 3rd dimension. This is where we are, and this circle next to it would be the 4th. In lesson 3, we talked about channeling, and this is typically where channeled beings are. This is also where you explore when you are astral projecting or lucid dreaming. You'll notice now that the musical system goes upwards and downwards forever, octaves over octaves over octaves. Theoretically, this is how the universe goes too, an infinite spectrum of universes in both directions going upwards and downwards forever. I mean, come on, we thought our universe was big, but everything in our universe, as far as we can see, well, that's just this one dimension. You may have heard people talk...
So, dreaming brings you into another dimension that... None of this
about 144 dimensions and how 144 relates to other spiritual subjects. This is because there are 12 notes in an octave and 12 overtones between each note. 12 times 12 equals 144 dimensional levels. To be specific, there are 12 major dimensions and 132 minor dimensions within each octave, though in truth this progression probably goes on forever. The diagram we'll be looking at represents one octave. The 13th note repeats, and then there's another octave after that. I want to show you this. I was watching Ancient Aliens not long ago, and one of the natives...
Oh, he was watching Ancient Aliens. Of course. I made that joke in the video. I literally made that joke. And here it is. Oh.
Who has communication with beings in higher dimensions, told the man who was interviewing him
that they have always been here, even right here where we're sitting right now. But you just don't see them. They're in a different frequency.
And no one really got what he meant. So that's kind of a fresh perspective on that. An apocalypse is a disclosure of something hidden from the majority of mankind in an era dominated by falsehood and misconception.
That means
today we're going to be looking at another way that humans grow through phi. Instead of looking at phi inside the body, we're going to be looking at phi outside the body and what it means for us in this pivotal point in human history. Do you remember the fruit of life? The first system created the platonic solids, which created structure throughout the universe. The second system was the basis of how vibration, sound, harmonics, music, and matter are all interrelated in all of creation. Today we will look at the third system. The fruit of life will reveal itself in the process. We'll call this system the circles and squares of human consciousness. It is what the Chinese called circling the square and squaring the circle. Remember when we discussed the platonic solids in lesson 6? I showed you that all of them will sit perfectly.
That's not a platonic solid. That's the Merkaba. That's... I see what you did there. I know where it is going.
Within a sphere, each with every corner touching the sphere perfectly. Well, there's one other shape that can do that. It's a characteristic that only one of the platonic solids have, making it special. It is the cube, which you can put every single platonic solid inside, and an edge or point will touch the inside of the cube perfectly. Through truncating the cube in different ways, you can create all of the other shapes. Because of this characteristic, it essentially means that the cube is like the father of all shapes. It is a male form, and the sphere is the mother of all shapes. It is a female form. All levels of consciousness in the universe are integrated by a single image in sacred geometry. It is the key to space, time, and dimension, as well as consciousness itself. Each level is a geometric image or lens that spirit looks through to see the one reality, resulting in a completely different experience. In the case of humans, this image is the circle and square. This is what Leonardo da Vinci was doing when he drew this drawing, and I'm going to show you what the circle and square combination mean. If you put a circle inside a square perfectly, and then continue to put another circle and square, each with the same diameter, one radius away on all sides, going outwards, you get a drawing that looks like this. You'll notice that with the first circle and square, they fit perfectly within the other. This also happens with the second circle and square. However, then the squares begin penetrating circles. The male form begins interacting with the female form. Why is this important? Well, the circles and squares begin to equate the phi ratio. See, when the circumference of a circle and the perimeter of the square are equal, this equates the phi ratio. So as you can see on this diagram, on the fourth square and the fifth circle, it begins to create the phi ratio. It's close, but not perfect. It's only a 0.6 difference. I'm measuring in radii, by the way. The inner circle has a radius of 1, so it's 2 radii across. The next is 4, and then 6, 8, 10, and so on. So the one we just looked at makes a close phi ratio, and then it moves out of sync, staying out of sync for a bit, and then bam! Again, it moves into yet another phi ratio. This time, the difference is only 0.52, even closer to perfection than before. This will continue on forever. If you were to continue this drawing outwards to infinity, each time it would go into sync, drop out of sync for a few circles and squares, but then eventually hit phi again closer than it did the last time. Right now, there are 3 primary levels of consciousness that we're going to be talking about. They are essentially who we were, who we are, and who we will be. We'll call it the first, second, and third, so that it's easy to understand what we're talking about. The ancient Egyptians were very concerned with these 3 levels as well, and much of their culture...
I don't know why they're so obsessed with the ancient Egyptians either. Like, everything that they talk about has to go back to the ancient Egyptians. Where's the love for the Assyrians? Where's the Assyrian love? What about Mongolians? Where's the Mongolian lore? Huh? Or the... Oh, they're ancient... Aztec. I mean, they'll pull up pyramids every now and then, like Aztecs, Mayans, Incans. And they were getting up to some decent stuff too. 2 a.m. Gotta sleep. Okay, good night, Polish cow. Try not to have too much cocaine. Eponym on Mars. I don't know what that means. But hello.
Was based on this information. Each of these levels has their own geometric lens too, which look like this. We'll come back to these soon. This is the first level of consciousness, and this is the third. We are on neither of these 2 phi levels on the circle and square chart. Where we are, the second level of consciousness, is here. We are on the 5th square relative to the 6th circle. For quite a while now, I've been saying that we're at a disharmonic level, and it's something that we're passing through as a species. Now you begin to see the bigger picture of what I meant. The reason it's disharmonic is because it does not equate a phi ratio, not even close. Disharmonic levels are important because they bridge a gap between the divine, pure levels. However, when a species is here, it has to get in and get out as fast as possible, or else they will destroy themselves and everything around them incredibly quickly. You can see this happening all around the world today, because we're at the very end of it, and
global warming is destroying the 3rd dimension. I'll admit this is getting a little boring now, but I'm going to stick through it and see what I can find. Maybe I'll learn something new. So far, Not really.
Everything is crashing down on us. We've discussed this all before, notably in the intros of Lesson 1 and 2. So the reason that we're on this circle and square combination and not the 6 square relative to some other circle is because of this. If you take the square and rotate it 45 degrees, it actually creates a bridge. It connects us from 2 harmonic levels of being. We're moving from one state of being to the other, this time even closer to source. This is a very exciting time for us. Oh, let me show you this too. This is how the Great Pyramid is set up. This chamber here is called the King's Chamber. If you cut the Great Pyramid...
Someone said there were Jewish Martins, so I assumed it was about the face. Yeah, it was about the face. They made a claim that the face was next to some pyramids, and that the pyramids, when you line them up, make the Star of David or something along those lines. So, strange comment for sure, but this guy's a strange guy.
Pyramid horizontally at the King's Chamber, which was the main initiation chamber, and rotate the top half 45 degrees, it makes the exact same image as our level of consciousness. There's a reason for that. The Great Pyramid is the key instrument in allowing humans to reach the 3rd level of consciousness, both as a species and individually. In fact, that's part of the reason why the Great Pyramids were created in the first place. Let's talk more about these levels though. So what Leonardo was drawing was actually the 1st level of consciousness. See how he hid lines in this drawing? If you complete this grid, it creates an 8x8 grid. This is the same 64 square grid found on the 1st level. Measuring in radii, this grid is 8x8. However, the circle has 10 radii across, so we'll call this 1st level an 8x10. This is where we were. The 1st level is the first time self-aware consciousness began. The 2nd level has 10 squares across the large square, and a 12 radii circle, so we'll call it a 10x12. This is where we are now. This level is the 3rd level, which is also called Christ consciousness. It is a 14x18. Now, there's always a reason for everything in sacred geometry. Nothing, absolutely nothing, happens without a reason. Everything is connected. Out of the whole spectrum of possibilities, why did self-aware human consciousness begin when the 4th square went into harmony with the 5th circle? Well, let's overlay the fruit of life over our 1st level for a second. Look at that! It exactly...
But you can do that to every shape. It's the same thing.
Fits the 4th square and 5th circle perfectly. Do you see the perfection of life? The fruit of life pattern was hidden beneath this pattern all along. They're precisely superimposed over the other. In a right brain way...
You could do that with any of the circles. You could fit that in any circle. No.
This is how to explain why consciousness first became self-aware between the 4th square and 5th circle. This sacred image was part of the pattern. The fruit of life was completed at the precise moment that the phi ratio first appeared, and when phi appeared, consciousness had a way to manifest in a new way. Throughout time, many scholars have tried to figure out the secret meaning behind what Leonardo meant with the Vitruvian Man drawing. He was showing us human consciousness. This is where we were, the 1st level. There is a man who did draw our level though. Da Vinci was studying the works of a man named Vitruvius, who lived 1400 years before Da Vinci, hence the name Vitruvian Man. Vitruvius actually drew his own drawing of consciousness as well, and this is what it looked like. The circle and squares in this one are hidden, less obvious than the Da Vinci drawing. Regardless, they're there, and this is the current circle and square combination around our bodies. This drawing also contains the exact proportions of the Merkaba, which is an important energy system outside of the
That was not Merkaba.
Man drawing. He was showing us human consciousness. This is where we were, the 1st level. Combination around our bodies. This drawing also contains the...
Yeah, that is not a Merkaba, though. That is not symmetrical at all. It's like a stretched out Star of David. That's not what that's supposed to look like.
Exact proportions of the Merkaba, which is an important energy system outside of the body, similar to how chakras are an energy system inside the body. This image also contains the diamond that perfectly contains the man from head to feet. This is the same image.
No, it doesn't. You can see that the feet aren't contained in the diamond. My lying senses. Oh no.
We saw in the consciousness chart, as well as the Great Pyramid. Further proof that this was what Vitruvius was demonstrating to us when he created this image. So here we have drawings of the first 2 levels of consciousness. From what I know, there is no drawing of a 3rd. If there is, it's sealed up, locked away somewhere, and is probably one of the most sacred drawings in existence.
Ah yes, this pattern that I made up. There is no 3rd of this pattern, but I bet the Pope's sitting on it in some Vatican somewhere. Okay.
Alright, I know talking about geometry all the time can be a little daunting. So many circles and ratios and everything. If this is something you want to learn more about, I'm providing the Flower of Life books and PDFs in the comments. This information is found at the...
So there is a book about this. I couldn't find it at the archive. And what I'm seeing, it just kind of seems dense and coincidental. So I probably would not have wanted to read it anyways. I think I got mostly all the information I needed in that video.
The very beginning of Volume 2, and much, much more. I could probably do 4 or 5 lessons about the geometries of the human body and still not run out of things to talk about. But it's there for you if you want to learn more now.
Because you're just repeating yourself.
For the last portion of today's lesson, we're going to talk about some recent findings in modern science. As we just saw in the geometry, we are currently in a disharmonic state of being, but we are just about done with it. In doing so, we are moving into a new state of being. We are transferring from the 2nd level of consciousness to the 3rd, also called Christ consciousness. If we look at evolution in Earth's history, we always seem to make random jumps. There are always missing links in the evolution. chain. Scientists say that we just haven't found all the fossils.
Yeah, but these aren't necessarily jumps in human history. These are like cousins to humans. This diagram here isn't exactly accurate. This isn't something that they saw inscribed on walls. This is an illustration that one guy drew. It's not the most accurate.
And creationists say that God did it, and therefore it's part of some divine plan. But looking at what we just learned about consciousness, does it not make sense that evolution and creationism are just two sides of the same coin? Consciousness moves through different states of being, constantly moving closer and closer to divinity, to Phi. Every time it reaches a new stage, it makes a rapid biological change into something new, like what we're doing now. This is what the ancient Egyptians called resurrection, which we mentioned in Lesson 7. So, if we're really going through an evolution of consciousness, what's happening inside of us? Surely, this would mean that there are also biological changes happening to us at our core level, right? Does modern science see any big changes that they're afraid to tell the general public because they think it will cause a panic? Short answer, yes.
Biological changes in the human body. What, like your pineal gland calcifying? Like your pancreas no longer working? What are these biological changes? This would be interesting to hear more of if there was any concreteness to it.
Long answer, we are changing. Scientists have been studying this for almost 10 to 20 years now. Several years ago in New Mexico, there was a convention of geneticists from all over the world with the main topic of discussion being DNA mutations. Scientists acknowledge that we are changing, but the end result, they do not know. Through sacred geometry, we begin to actually see where we could be.
Is that it? Just, we're changing. Anyways, you can't even tell me what they came to the conclusion to? Okay.
Going. With 12 strands activated, you have 10 times as much information available to you than you do with just 2 strands, as we do now.
That's not exactly accurate.
The 12 strands work in sync with the 12 chakras, providing an immense amount of energy into the body. We are about to become super beings, enabling us.
We're about to become X-Men. We're about to go Wolverine.
To understand and do things that currently seem paranormal, bizarre, or downright impossible. From the article The Bigger Picture by Suzanne Thorpe Clarke, we are being changed physically from carbon-based.
Also, what does that mean? Where is he getting any of this from?
Beings to crystalline-based beings. This is interesting because
we're becoming crystalline-based beings. What does that mean? Again, the key's like, oh yeah, I provided sources, but when you go and look at the sources, this is what you get. This has a chat bot. That might be funny to fiddle with later.
Actually heard this from various channelings now, ascension and transformation into crystalline at our core. First the psychics were telling us this, and now we have science backing it up.
But no, it's not. You didn't provide any scientific claims.
What we know for sure is that we are going through a shift. In almost every ancient text and Bible, it speaks about a great shift and awakening. The Bible speaks about the coming of Christ. This is interesting, actually, because Christ is the name of the third level of consciousness.
Wait, you named it after Christ. How is that interesting? Ah, yes, this thing that I named after this guy. Isn't it interesting that it's named after this guy? No!
I didn't just make that up.
Yes, you did! Yes, you did!
We're moving into Christ consciousness, which means not that Jesus is going to show up with a big A, but we are actually moving into the level of conscious understanding that Jesus had. It is the coming of Christ through the human species. So higher strands of DNA. What does this really mean?
Why is he using a different microphone?
The DNA chain that science has presently identified as the double helix represents only the surface portions of the chemical, elemental, and electrical components of the active DNA strands.
We're supposed to switch from carbon to silica base. Maybe. Possibly. I don't think that's what he necessarily means when he says crystal based, though. Like if it became silica based, I have done some research into silica based life and how it's technically possible, but I can tell you right now that there is no concrete proof that we are becoming silica based life from the scientific community. There is nothing like that. This could be an interesting story, but if there's just nothing to it, it's hard to take seriously.
Science has yet to understand the multidimensional spectra of DNA manifestation, though we are beginning to remember. The human DNA imprint will always appear from external analysis as a 2-strand double helix configuration in 3 dimensions. What is not represents only the surface portion of the 2-strand.
According to some scientists, however, it still looks like one is missing. Adding a 3rd strand creates a beautiful balance. Strands. can have strands. Can be triple stranded. One of triplex. It is possible. How come my heart breaks? What does that mean? Someone break your heart, cub? I'm sorry if they did. Yeah, I don't think there's genetic instability. Okay, I don't think you want your DNA to be triple stranded from what I'm looking at.
Double helix configuration in 3 dimensions. What is not understood is that within the double helix there are, and will be progressively more, additional double helix strands which fuse together. As our understanding evolves into the multidimensional spectra, the understanding of the structure and function of DNA will progressively advance. A team of Russian researchers working with DNA started a project to progressively learn more about DNA by combining forces with linguists, and have dived into the unknown of the 90% of junk DNA which we currently embody. Their findings are evolutionary. According to them, our DNA is not only responsible for the construction of our body, but is also used as data storage and in communication. They learned that the 90% of DNA follows the same rules as all of our human language. The way that sentences, paragraphs, and chapters work in a book is the same way that our DNA works. This is the first double helix strand, the one that Western science looks at, which is basically like a sentence of DNA. However, if you step back and see the bigger picture, you begin to see the paragraph. Stepping back further and you see the chapter, and so on. These larger and larger strands span through the different frequencies of reality, the different dimensions, which makes them harder to find in our modern science.
Our DNA
Western
does
science,
not go
instead of
through
looking at
different
DNA
dimensions.
like this, we're cutting out pieces of DNA from here and adding them over here, which is similar to picking out words in certain sentences and putting them with other words in other sentences.
Yeah, if your DNA looks like this, you might make a video like this.
To see if they fit together and can make a new energy, a new idea.
Hold on. The lazy brown fox jumped down to the quick dog. Oh, brother. Triple Helix Crystal Life was the plot device for the show Threshold. I don't think I've heard of that, but...
This is the nature of our junk DNA, of which Western science just didn't understand for the longest of times. The DNA isn't junk, it's just misunderstood, and also not as used right now because of our dense level of consciousness. However, we are beginning to activate and reawaken our DNA through our ever-expanding consciousness and our desire
How are we doing
to know
that?
more. The very awareness of this DNA is what is activating it, awareness of our higher selves and our connection to the all and the interconnectedness to each other. We are directly connected to the earth as well, and exist as a part of it, kind of like a child in its mother's womb. If anything happens to the mother, it creates an energetic imprint that affects the child. The earth is our mother, hence the name Mother Earth. Our morphogenetic field exists as a part of her larger morphogenetic field of the earth. If something happens...
I've seen other videos by this guy that talks about the morphogenetic field. The morphogenetic field, I probably will make a video on that someday too, because I mean, I have a soft spot for it because it was in the Zeroscape games, which is one of my favorite series of games. But when it's talked about here, it's the charm.
To the Earth's energetic grid, then we inherit these problems into our own grid. Our energetic anatomy is exactly like the Earth's, with chakras, meridians, axiotonal lines, and DNA. If something happens to the planet's grid, then that affects every person's DNA on the planet. We are at a very important point in history right now, because we are remembering how to regenerate our original organic imprint for health.
So I know that the theory of the morphogenetic field has examples of how it manifests. However, the examples that I recall came from the Zeroscape games, and I'd be interested in knowing how many of those were real. I don't think Ice 9 is a real thing, but it'd be interesting to learn about. I wish that he would bring up some examples here, but I, again, sincerely doubt he's going to do that.
We don't even need science and fancy equipment to do this. We're just required to learn how to use what we came here with. By moving into a space of love and light, opening and living from the heart, and living in a place of emotional stability and health, you can once again reactivate your
Lol, fat doctor. What?
Remembering how to regenerate our original organic imprint for health. We don't even need science and
But this guy, he's not fat.
fancy equipment to do this.
He's just a regular guy. What did he just call the poor guy fat? He didn't ask to be in this video.
We're just required to learn how to use what we came here with. By moving into a space of love and light, opening and living from the heart, and living in a place of emotional stability and health, you can once again reactivate your light body, and in doing so, reconnect with the higher frequencies of your being. Energetic blockages will reveal themselves as problems in your own life. Depression, anxiety, temper rages, or personal problems in your life which are causing stuckness or driving you down a path of chaos or disruption are also energetic blockages.
Okay.
The Institute of Heart Math.
So because you're not being energetic, you're depressed. Oof, got a call. Okay, go take the call. I will be here. We're going to be here all night.
Has shown that generating sustained positive emotions facilitates a body-wide shift to a specific scientifically measurable state called psychophysiological coherence. Let's break this down. Psycho comes from psychological, which means mental and emotion, and physiological means body. Coherence is systematic or logical connection or harmony. Altogether, it means a harmony of both body, mind, and emotional functions. If you're familiar with the four elements, you know that earth is the physical, so body, air is mental, mind, water is...
Where are you getting these from? What? Okay.
Emotions, and fire is spirit. HeartMath has scientifically shown now that positive and healthy emotions bring 3 of those elements into coherence. And although they don't look at the spiritual aspect, I don't doubt that the fire element also comes into harmony. In an experiment done at the Institute, they hooked up scanners to an individual who was subjected to very chaotic emotions. For 300 seconds, they measured the respiration, heart rate variability, and blood pressure rhythm. After this time, the individual on the scanners did a technique on himself which they have dubbed the HeartMath Quick Coherence Technique, which activated a feeling of love and appreciation. Instantly, all 3 of the rhythms came into entrainment and harmony with each other, and stayed in harmony for the remainder of the experiment. One important note...
Okay, what's that called again?
After this time, the individual on the scanners did a technique on himself which they have dubbed the HeartMath
Quick Coherence Technique. Let's take a look at this. Focus your attention in the area of the heart. Imagine your breathing flowing in and out. In your attempt to experience a regenerative feeling. Okay, so it's just an extra way to calm down. If you calm down, you will calm down. Amazing, right? Unless I'm missing something here. Yeah, inhale 5 seconds, exhale 5 seconds. If you do that, then your breathing will go in sync. Again, maybe I'm missing something here, but it's not looking the most revolutionary.
Quick Coherence Technique, which activated a feeling of love and appreciation. Instantly, all 3 of the rhythms came into entrainment and harmony with each other, and stayed in harmony for the remainder of the experiment. One important note to stress is that cohesion is not relaxation. The process of relaxation is a low energy state in which the individual rests both body and mind, typically disengaging from cognitive and emotional processes. In contrast, coherence is experienced as a calm and balanced, yet energized and responsive state of being that is optimal for mental acuity, focus, problem solving, and decision making, as well as the physical activity and coordination. So coherence is the natural state you want to be in all the time. You know, unless you're relaxing. You know, that's good too. So how does one get to the state of cohesion? Breathing. Your breath is intimately connected to your heart rate and your heart in general. And if you ever find yourself in a very chaotic mental state, take a few seconds to step back of what's causing the chaos and focus on your breath. Take long and deep breaths. The Institute of...
I mean, this is good advice. You know, if you're in a stressful environment, you know, taking some deep breaths can help. So there is a positive message to this video that isn't just a bunch of pseudoscience. Breathing techniques are helpful, and Archive recommends them. Yeah.
HeartMath doesn't put too much focus into particular breathing techniques, but they put an emphasis on using your breath as well as positive and loving emotions to bring you back into a state of cohesion. They say that it's not super necessary to put focus on your breath all the time, but it is very helpful to bring yourself out of chaos and back into alignment. From a spiritual perspective, and if you're working towards that, breath is very important. However, breath is another huge topic, and I personally recommend focusing on your breath during meditations. Focusing on breathing and your heart.
You're breathing right now? Cut that out, man. You can't be doing that. That'll throw your chakras out of alignment. You gotta stop breathing. Don't stop breathing. YouTube, this is a joke. I'm not telling people to stop breathing. This is comedic.
Heart is a beautiful way to move into a silent space during meditation and deeper into yourself, all while sustaining the same healthy emotions. Now, throughout ancient history, across many religions and belief systems, the heart was always considered the center of the being, the source of spiritual wisdom and insight, thought, emotion, and connection to the divine. The ancient Egyptians believed that all thought and life was done
Again,
from the heart.
what is the deal with ancient Egypt? Why do they keep bringing up ancient Egypt? I haven't seen someone this obsessed with ancient Egypt since Victorian England. Good lord. Is this guy eating mummies too? I wouldn't be surprised.
Which is why they threw away the brain after the pharaoh died, but they left the heart in the body. They felt that the being would need it in the next life, so they left it there, but the...
Well, they left the heart because they needed it to weigh against the feather in the afterlife. It wasn't because the brain was useless. This is because their mythology valued the heart. Okay.
The brain was useless. Western scientific thought places the heart as just a pump. However, in the last several decades, science has begun to go full circle in realizing and understanding what these ancient civilizations knew and taught. In the field of neurocardiology, scientists...
Egypt was lit. I mean, yeah, to a certain degree. It wasn't as just mind-bendingly, psychically active as these communities want you to believe. It was an interesting field in time, but kind of like the Greeks, it gets an overrepresentation in cultures, for sure.
Scientists have discovered that the heart possesses its own intrinsic nervous system, a network...
Well, yeah, it needs its own intrinsic nervous system because it needs to beat even if your brain isn't entirely active. So it has an autonomous nervous system so that it can maintain a steady rhythm. That doesn't mean it's conscious.
Of brain cells with over 40,000 neurons. This gives the heart the ability to independently sense and process information and make decisions, even demonstrate a type of learning and memory.
No, it doesn't.
In a simplified sense, you can think with your heart. The heart is truly an intelligent system.
Don't think with your heart.
The heart also has found to be a hormone gland, manufacturing and secreting numerous hormones and neurotransmitters that profoundly affect the brain and body function.
That one's
Among
probably
these hormones
true.
Is one called oxytocin, well known as the love or bonding hormone, bringing things together. Science is also beginning to understand that the electromagnetic field around the heart has a powerful effect on not just the human body, but others around you as well.
That sounds a little more far-fetched.
It's a key component of the emotional system. Science now understands that the heart not only responds to emotions, but the signals it sends out dramatically affects the quality of the emotional experience from moment to moment.
Well, yeah, that's stress. If you're more stressed or in a fight or flight mode, it'll make your... It's not the heart is causing emotions. It's the emotions or a activity level that will adjust your heart. That's not how that works.
And also that our heart plays a key role in accessing our intuition. In school, we've been taught that the heart is constantly responding to orders sent from the brain. But what's less commonly talked about is that the brain receives even more orders from the heart. We've been doing it backwards. Moreover, these...
It always sucks to be poor, no matter the era, but historians mostly ignore drudgery. These cultures seem glamorous. Yeah, that is true. But we don't know everything about these cultures because our information on them can be very spotty, inaccurate, or just completely absent altogether. A lot of Egypt lore, from what I know, is, especially in this video, it's not the most factual. It's kind of just fantastical. Like they're pretty much talking about Narnia here in the sense.
These signals have a significant effect on brain function, influencing emotional processes as well as higher cognitive faculties, such as attention, perception, memory, and problem solving. Guide yourself from your heart, not from your brain. When you allow your negative emotions to get to you, you disconnect from your ability to think clearly, remember things, learn lessons, reason, and make effective decisions, which explains why often we act impulsively and unwisely under stress. The heart's signal has a profound effect on the brain during positive and negative emotions. Live in your heart, for the heart is the center of unity consciousness, where the brain is the center of duality consciousness. You can see that right in how they're made. The brain has the two hemispheres. The heart is a place of unity. Since we fell in consciousness, we moved from...
But the heart has 4 hemispheres. The heart has 4 chambers. It doesn't track.
Heart consciousness and into our brains. And all decisions were made from the brain. In doing so, we became polarized and lost our connections to the universal consciousness called unity. This shift in consciousness we are experiencing now is a movement from the brain and back into the heart, where we will once again know and understand the universe and unconditional love for everyone and all things, regardless of who they are or what damage they've done.
But what does this have to do with sacred geometry? I feel like we're taking a bit of a tangent, which I'm absolutely guilty of, but thinking with your heart is not something that... It's a turn of phrase. Quadrunity? Yes, we're going to experience quadrunity. 4 times as much of happiness and love.
Done to themselves or others. And this is why the heart is so important right now. Live in your heart. It is the gateway to the divine.
Don't do
Torus
that.
is a very fundamental part of nature. So fundamental, in fact, that science is now seeing that everything moves through this form in one way or another, including ourselves. Very simply, the torus is a self-organizing system that all comes together at a space of unity and expands its energy out all around itself until it returns back to that original space in the center, and will continue to do it again.
I mean, that's a pretty visual,
Physics,
but
mathematics, and generally all forms of science, this geometry really begins to bridge the gap between understanding how sacred geometry truly is the geometry of life. This is a geometry that breathes. It has life itself.
Our very own hearts are the first and best examples of a toroid.
Chris Love, macho compadre. Who's Chris Love? Name. What am I looking at? Okay, I think there's multiple individuals named Chris Love. I don't know who this person is. We're just gonna continue on.
The heart is where it all starts. The energy of our hearts flow outward in a toroidal fashion and are also received in a toroidal fashion. This way, everything we send out in love, we are immediately affected by as a result. In other words, our emanation of love is a gift to yourself as much as it's a gift to the universe around you.
Okay.
You can look in nature to see these shapes everywhere. It's in oranges and apples. You can see it around...
That's just a circle!
Tornadoes. The magnetic field of the Earth is a very powerful example, as well as how the atmosphere of the planet works too. Our modern scientists haven't really taken the concept of hollow Earth very seriously, even though this...
Modern science hasn't taken the concept of hollow Earth seriously. Gee, I wonder why. Why would modern science not think that the Earth is hollow? I want to learn more about hollow Earth because it's an interesting story, but yeah, go figure they're not taking it seriously. We have no proof that it's a thing.
This concept does explain a lot of fundamental theories about the Earth, to which we don't really understand, despite all of our theories.
Present science tries to explain this with a shadow wave theory, but excludes the belt-like physical behavior complete. What does that mean?
Well, the idea of hollow Earth works in the exact same way as well. It demonstrates that our planet is designed from the core as a torus. The Earth is multidimensional, so we can actually have both a hot iron core as well as a 5D hollow Earth interior as well. For those who
a 5D? We're in 5 dimensions in the hollow Earth? What is this? Is there a portal in Antarctica to go to the hollow Earth? Is that what this is implying? Again, hollow Earth, I mean, that's something I really want to learn more about. And one of these days I will make a full-on video about it, but just seeing this just makes it goofy.
If you want to learn more immediately, check out Hollow Earth HD on YouTube.
Hollow Earth HD on YouTube. I'll
Moving
check that out.
We all know the fundamental principle of the universe of as above, so below. Well, this torus is even found at the size of galaxies. Atoms even have this very geometry as well. It's quite literally everywhere. From this basic expression demonstrates how life ought to be. All of the energy that emerges from the core travels around the torus and fuels itself. It also has the ability to give to other toroidal systems, which openly practice giving and receiving. It really sets a standard for how to do things, and we can mirror this and use it in our own daily lives as well.
When you give and receive openly, you allow your energy to become toroidal. When we look at the
Torus-shaped food equals donut. Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't brought up the donut yet. Or a bagel, even though the bagels that I usually have don't have a hole in them anymore. Means you get more bread.
interactions between one another, we begin to see the nature of giving and receiving. If we shift how we give and receive with others, we give ourselves an opportunity to receive feedback from what we emanate immediately. This allows for an enlightening transaction of energy between all life and allows all of our communications to resonate on that toroidal frequency of love. Love is not just a feeling, it's a vibration and a frequency that is connected to
vibration, frequency, energy fields. It's all this stuff we've heard 100 times in the past, and when you ask them for any proof on this, they don't have anything other than feeling. I wish that this video was divided into chapters so I could just skip this chapter. I'm so Torus-shaped cushion. Grandpa's hemorrhoid? What are you saying? What? That sure is.
all things. The pure vibration that emanates around one's own heart and brings things together harmoniously is through a universal vibration we call love.
If you look at the flower of life in 2D, it may be a little hard to tell. However, in 3 dimensions, one can truly see that it too is a torus.
Surprised they haven't up to yet. You talking about like flat Earth? Because I don't think they think the Earth is flat. I think the Earth is hollow, which doesn't exactly. I don't think you can have both at the same time.
The The flower of life is all geometries, remember? The torus is yet another one of those creation patterns that emerged from this, or rather is this form.
Oh, are they going into
It's so important to understanding everything.
tetrahedron?
Even Nikola Tesla worked with this geometry, and through it he discovered a way to access free energy for the entire planet. Well, of course.
Tesla's free energy. I need to look into Tesla's free energy. I've heard this before. Obviously, if there was such thing as Tesla's free energy, someone would have made it by now. If I can make the archive run off that would be. I doubt there's anything. The idea that the sky is a cell. Yeah, that usually goes with the idea that. If I can find it, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's the idea that the sky basically has water above it, and that it lends itself to the flat Earth in this way, that firmament is just waters, that the sky is like a bubble shields the Earth from the water. This is why when the flood happened, firmament opened up, let all the water down, which flooded the Earth. So I don't think they're talking about that because they have a different idea of how the Earth is shaped. Smash the donut into a bagel chip, get flat, hollow Earth. If you look closely enough, you can see hexagon in the humble bagel. Porky the Pig moment there. Oh my god, I subscribed a week ago after the Algo Game Moth video, and now we're doing over my crystal phase. I have no idea why the algorithm loved the moth video so much, but before the moth video, I had 30 subscribers. After the moth video, I got 500, and now we're sitting at over 1,000. That video made this channel. Why? I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I didn't think the moth video was anything to write home about, and it was going to be something I would work on while I worked on my next video, which I wanted to put a lot more effort into, which was the superstitious Sailor iceberg. I thought that video was what was going to pop the channel off, and ironically, it was the other way around. But yeah, a lot of people found the channel through that moth video, so thank you for coming here. People seem to like moths, and I mean, I like moths. I am one, so I would hope so. But yeah, the Esoteric Archive isn't only about moths. It's just about finding deeper meanings in the mundane, or just going deep into a topic that I want to know more about. Moths are popular. Yeah, they're more popular than I thought they were, honestly. I haven't seen a lot of moth love. If anything, I've seen some moth hate of people be like, oh, these disgusting bugs flying around in my room, I must kill them. Oh, I thought they were pretty niche, honestly. But here we are. Video's sitting on like 18,000 views now. Get to see how the sausage is made. Yeah, 18,000 views. It's more than 5 times all my other videos combined. Which, by the way, quick update for the people who are here. We are going to continue the King in Yellow series soon. I do want to get back to reading stories. But yeah, this is our current repertoire of content, and plan on making more. Anyways, back to the movie. Yes, thank you for being here, Cerulean. We've made it an hour through the video, and I've been streaming for about 2 hours, so I've had quite a couple tangents.
Of course, all of the corporations of the world wanted to keep charging people for energy. And between them and the US government,
Okay, so about the charging for energy, I do want to make note that I have heard about, and maybe I want to look into this, that light bulbs, they made a light bulb that wouldn't go out. Actually, I don't know if I covered this in the streetlight interference video. I don't think I did. Maybe I did. By the way, for those of you who haven't seen this video, you want to see what I used to look like? Look, watch this. Have you ever walked or driven by a streetlight? I also had a different microphone back then. Only it comes back to life behind you? Imagine this occurrence happening so consistently, so frequently, that you can't help but notice. This is the premise of SLI, the idea that certain individuals are able to subconsciously... Hello, dear viewers. Look, it's me! It's the moth! That was before I had art of the moth. I had to use a literal moth and just add little emotions to it. But yeah, I don't think... And I remember when I made this video, it got like 400 views. I was like, wow. I was a pupa. Yeah, this project has an evolutionary track to follow. We're on chapter 1 right now. This was the prologue. But no, I don't think I covered it in the streetlight interference video. But they made a light bulb that had a lifetime of like way, way longer than what you would see today. Some might even say it could just go on forever. But there is a rumor, I don't know if it's confirmed or not, that these companies that are making these light bulbs weren't making a lot of money. Because as soon as you buy a light bulb, you don't need to replace it. It just goes on forever. And this was where the idea of planned obsolescence came into, where they would make light bulbs that had a set shelf life that would fail after a time. We could have had light bulbs that never died. But because these companies needed money, they made light bulbs that would die. That's something I definitely want to look into. But yeah. I don't think companies are hiding infinite energy of Tesla, but there is a better case that they are doing it for life bulb lifetime.
All of Tesla's most amazing work was destroyed. In Lesson 15, we talked a bit about this before, and now we can go deeper into it. The Institute of Heart Math, as well as Stanford University, among others, have now scientifically demonstrated that around the physical heart of your body, you have two...
Stanford University. I think Stanford University was the university that... Okay, we're going to go back to the video. I think Stanford was the one that did the streetlight interference experiment. Here? In 1979, the Dean of Engineering at Princeton University... Oh, it's Princeton. It wasn't Stanford. I know Princeton had a branch that looked into paranormal projects, experiments, and they eventually got shut down because they didn't really find anything. But, yeah.
Two toroidal fields, one inside the other, which are connected to the sacred space and the tiny space within the heart. Greg Braden has done a lot of work in explaining this to the modern world as well, and Drunvalo Melchizedek has put a lot of focus into teaching that this is some of the most important information regarding...
Full of remembering. That is an eerie looking face there. This looks like a Cenobite.
Physical ascension. This is part of the understanding that is truly bridging the gaps between science and spirituality.
Spirits,
China
science.
Really amazing things. They have
Play that again, the audience.
Part of the understanding that is truly bridging the gaps between science and spirituality.
China is doing some really amazing things.
China is doing some really amazing things. And 10 years ago. That age liked milk. Actually, I do think I remember hearing about how China was doing something with cloning or something with genetics because there was a general worldwide either ban or restriction on research, but China didn't sign up for it, and so they got ahead in the technological curve because they didn't follow it, which pushes the idea that restrictions on science don't make progress go slower, they just make it go into darker corners. I want to see how those uncanny graphics are made. Baby's first blender. Pretty much just someone who's not very accustomed to 3D modeling is doing that. Thank you, President G, for unlocking the secrets of the chakras. Another thing I want to cover is Hyperborea. However, I know that it has a lot of associations with a certain political party. So that will be interesting to skirt around, but that will be coming eventually.
They have hospitals that are completely dedicated to the work of prana and energy, rather than the...
They have spirit hospitals. That's the amazing thing they're doing. Oh, there's a COVID joke in there somewhere, I'm sure.
Physical body of patients. In one experiment in a Chinese hospital...
Okay, actually, I'm sorry that I keep pausing. I just want to take a quick tangent. The author, and when I say the author, again, delineation, the person behind the channel, because I want to differentiate between the character and the author. But the author used to go to acupuncture because his father was like, hey, I know a friend that can help you with this. Maybe it'll help with stress. And it was something that he was going through. The father was going through when he was having a tough time. So the author was going to these acupuncture sessions, didn't really notice much of a difference, but hearing the doctor talk about how there was a lot of unknown science to it and how science is just starting to wake up to the benefits of acupuncture and how someday he told the author that eventually we would have machines that would be able to do acupuncture that would be able to help with all sorts of ailments. And I heard that, and I thought, that sounds interesting. And then I stopped going, and it was a little expensive, which is kind of out of the price range right now. But it would be interesting to look into acupuncture and seeing what that guy was talking about. Yeah, always worth digging into that sort of thing, though. There's a lot that I want to dig into. There's the whole point behind this channel is there are things that I want to learn more about. I want to go on these ADHD-driven rabbit holes and learn things that I've heard in passing, and I want to make something productive out of it because the phrase rings through my mind, the best way to learn something is to teach it. So by making videos on these things that I'm doing rabbit holes into, I am able to teach others about it. And well, the channel isn't monetized right now, but hopefully eventually it will. We're closer to it than I thought we'd be at this stage. But if I can get a little bit of money for these rabbit holes, that would be pretty nice. So that's what we're shooting for right now. Just got to get more watch time. I used to work for an acupuncture doc from Taiwan. Harvard was studying acupuncture at the time. Oh, interesting. I'll have to look into Harvard studies that they did on that. Would be an interesting deep dive. And speaking of deep dive, back to the movie.
We see how the science of mantra is used to remove the cancer tumor of a woman in just 2.5 minutes.
What? Huh? Using energy healing to cure cancer? Ooh, I do not like that. I don't like the sound of that.
Mantra is a sacred sound or chant that acts as an energetic formula for prayer or meditation. Mantras allow for us to connect to our source and emanate an audible frequency that focuses our minds.
Oh, by the way, Cerulean, I don't know if you've seen this. I've been showing the other viewers, but they're like, oh yeah, if you want to look at our sources for this video, check out the link below. And you can see here, for the full video description and sources, check out our website. And you click on the website. So I can't verify any of the stuff that they're saying, which is a shame. But yeah, hearing about how they cured cancer with the chant sounds strange.
Sound, and thus inwardly back to the source. When chanting from the heart, these doctors allowed themselves to focus on the reality that this woman was already being healed. In this, it allowed for the mind to bypass the normal confines of reality, as its intention toroidally flowed in and out of the source of which reality emanates itself. For everyone who has been skeptical of the idea of self-healing through intention, this video is proof that it's not just a plausible idea, but it's very, very real. We need only understand.
I would be interested in seeing what this video they're showing is. Showing a tumor. Hold on. I don't think they spell it, but I'm sure. Well, it wouldn't have been 2015 because that was after. I don't know where they got this video from.
Understand why it works and how it works. To come from a skeptical place and try, you will only see skeptical results. To come from a pure and true space, anything is possible.
To come from a place with critical thinking, you will see the flaws in this logic. However, if you throw your brain away and just look at this without any critical thought, then you will see that it's real. Those who believe in ghosts are the ones who see them.
Nassim Haramein has made a documentary recently called Black Hole, which we did discuss in Lesson 18. He has demonstrated that the space at the center of the torus is literally the point of singularity, infinity, and the space where all consciousness truly resides. The source of the source field, and a space where all things are connected. In our modern physics, we don't really...
What is this music? I have heard the author's mother play this on the car in long trips. Why are we playing this?
Take consciousness and...
Just open your mind. Thermodynamics ceases to apply. If you just delude yourself, you'll be a lot happier.
Life into the scientific equations. Russian scientists...
Hey, look, it's me! I know that guy.
...are propelling their understandings of life to new levels, and have even begun bridging the gaps of understanding gravity. Our Western model is not built to understand gravity, and the Russians have developed models which harmonically see that gravity itself is a conscious field, an information field of love that holds things together.
Gravity is conscious and filled with love, according to the Russians. They're known to always be very truthful.
Really profound, and even quantum physics is beginning to look at this in new light. Remember in Lesson 18, we talked about the vector equilibrium. This torus form and the cube octahedron go hand in hand. It is the male and female aspects of each other, and the vector equilibrium, when put into use in science, can grant access to an infinite amount of energy through tapping into the space of unity of the source field, the 0 point, the field of consciousness that science now knows connects all things.
Science now knows that 0 point connects all things. The only time I've heard of 0 point is in science fiction, which should say a lot about it.
By understanding the torus and the nature of unity, one can really get in tune with themselves in relationship to the all.
Let's also remember that considering our universe itself and everything within it is a reflection of this toroidal pattern, we can free our minds from the perspective that anything is separate, even as a void of a black hole contains the existence of everything supposedly outside of it. This is reflected in the psychic nature of those who in meditation...
Oh wait, I used this GIF. I used this GIF in one of my videos. Which video was it? Was it the moth one? No, I think it was the decadence. I don't know, but I've seen this in a lot of memes.
Dive into the void of consciousness, and those also who reach a state of Godhead awareness that includes all life in unity and love.
Matrix.
The one is all, and the all is the one. In the torus,
like
the point of singularity, whatever consciousness is present, is the purest representation of the whole. The whole field is emerging from and returning to its original source, and all of it is conscious, and the singularity at the center is the space where it all came together and emerged out of. This can be demonstrated with the understanding of how the heart emerges in the body. If you remember from Lesson 15, the heart is the first organ to come into existence, and the rest of the body folds out of the heart itself, and then it pulls the heart into the center. The heart is truly more primal, more connected to source, and far more important than the brain. The heart is the space of love, and love of all is what will get you back into the heart and out of your brain. In order to grow and become lighter energetically, we as individuals and as society must learn to understand how to really get back into the natural flow of things. This is what the natural flow looks like, among a few other forms as well. For many, understanding the torus from a left brain perspective is needed to really get back in tune with yourself. For others, you already understand it intuitively, and you just have to go with the flow, and everything will work out perfectly.
Didn't have to... This sequence could play to that music sounds... I can already see it in my head. That would be really funny. Didn't have to cut me off. And we see here, if you just connect to love... I don't know how the song... Yeah, that was funny.
According to the Mayans, the solstice on December 21st, 2012...
Oh, brother. This came out 10 years ago, so this is 2014. Yeah, so we know the world didn't end in 2012.
Precisely at 11:11 a.m. Universal Time marks the completion of the 5,125-year Great Cycle of the Mayan long count calendar. 2012 also marks the completion of the 26,000-year precession of the equinoxes cycle, which we discussed in Lesson 5. According to the calendars, it also signifies the end of a 144,000-year cycle, a 78,000-year cycle, and a 26 million-year cycle. The 2012 date marks the completion of this world age cycle, but it does not signify the end. Well, it kind of does. It's the end of what we know, and into a transition of something new. It is a
I have to wonder if they were onto something, because the world after 2012 has been, in short, nightmarish. You could say the 2012 solstice was the breaking point for me believing in this. I was in 9th grade. I don't know what the 2012 solstice is. Be interested in hearing what happened with it.
Transitional state, but it definitely does not mean this.
Doesn't have to look
We
like
need to
this.
understand that the 2012
Turns out they were right. Turns out they were right about solstice happening. Is that what you meant?
prophecies are signaling to us to wake up and realize that these times on Earth are very important. We are living in a landmark time in the history of this planet. We are collectively, as a species, approaching a crossroads that is calling out to us to participate in our fullest capacity. Let me show you a diagram to try and demonstrate just how important this is. First, this is how DNA works. See how you can basically map it out like a story? Here's the beginning, which could be seen as creation, or start of a cycle. And then it moves outwards, expanding and moving into all potentials, until it reaches its peak in the middle. It stretches far out and then begins moving back towards the center, back to its source. But it will be a new space that it now exists in. Then it returns back to a center point, where it ends, or transitions, into a state where it expands out once more, continuing its infinite cycle of expansion and contraction. One could also say that it moves through the chakras, moving from a low frequency to an incredibly high frequency, where it will unite and transition out once more. Now think of the human species like this, and 2012 being that point of unity where everything comes together, right before starting off again and expanding out into something new and different. This is basically what's happening right now on Earth, but there's a catch.
We go into a higher frequency after 2012? Are you sure about that?
We have absolutely no idea how we're going to expand out, because there are so many potentials with what's happening on the planet right now. Cycles are everywhere. The way in which we live our lives is made up of cycles. We have both biological cycles and technological cycles. Biological cycles exist naturally as a part of the creation process of life, and technological cycles are cycles that we have created and superimposed over top of these other cycles, as a way of measuring and understanding the reality that we are a part of. Time is a perfect example of this. It doesn't really exist on its own, it has no life of its own, it's simply a measurement of some other cycles. So you could think of it as a measuring tool, such as an hour worth of this, or I'll meet you at 6. In the past, we might have said it differently. Let's gather again at the second moon cycle. Let's get more into examples of technological cycles. Take, for example, our calendars, seconds, life cycles of video game consoles. Some of them, like our year-long calendar count, is our interpretation of a natural cycle, the Earth spiraling around the sun. Others, like video game consoles, are completely based on our modern world, current technology, the economy, buyer's demand, and what have you. Biological cycles are nature. They happen in relationship to each other, and are much more harmonic than the cycles that we've created. They are natural. The tree doesn't think, is it time to bear fruit yet? I'm just not sure. I think I'll hold off because I'm afraid no one's going to eat the fruit. Right? In nature, the tree just doesn't. It knows by its inherent instructions what it's supposed to do. It's by its natural design. Other cycles in nature are like solar and lunar cycles, the 4 seasons, and bears that hibernate. Notice too, with the information from lesson 16, you could map it like this. There are smaller cycles within the larger cycles. Like our celestial cycle, we find it broken up into the 4 seasons, and inside that, we have the cycles of the rest of life on Earth, all doing their thing in relationship with each other, which are both influenced by...
So the author lives in Florida. So the season cycles aren't exactly like this. They're more like hot, this one, and then cold. Except cold isn't as long. I remember when I was a kid, or rather the author, whatever, the separation's kind of falling apart. But given that there were 12 months in a year, I thought it was safe to assume that each season was 3 months, roughly speaking. You'd have 3 months of spring, 3 months of summer, 3 months of fall, 3 months of winter. That'd make it equal and even. That's not how that works. Spring and summer are way longer, fall and winter. And they don't even line up either. Like, winter doesn't end in December. If anything, that's kind of where it starts. So this equal season idea isn't all that accurate. That's another point against this whole thing.
And influence the larger cycle. Sometimes it may not seem like the smaller cycles have no influence on the larger cycle, but just imagine the story of what happened to the Martians on Mars in the Human History movie.
Oh, we're going to the Martians. We're going to them. We're going to the Jewish Martians. We came back.
I'm not saying that this is exactly what happened, but if the actions of the individual beings changed the evolution of the planet that ultimately ended up in the destruction of the planet, well, that would be the smaller cycles influencing the larger cycles. You know, it's just an idea. We also have cycles within our own bodies, such as breath,
they didn't go very far into it,
and eating food. These cycles are a lot harder to map out because we are the ones who decide when we eat, what we eat, and how much we eat. But it actually does create effects on us throughout our days. Once again, those smaller cycles have an effect on our larger day-to-day cycles. Interesting. Our interactions with the four elements are constantly cycling. Fire, for example, is prana, which is happening all the time, more frequently than breath, drink, and food.
What's that mean?
You can see how these cycles become more dense and happen less often. You breathe more than you eat.
So it's like a sieve tech tree.
And so it stands to reason that a dense cycle has a longer duration. As you breathe in, you ride the sine wave up, and as you breathe out, you drop the sine wave back down. As you go about your day, every hour, minute, and second, you are breathing. And if you created a healthy breathing cycle for yourself, then the other cycles you are experiencing, the larger cycles, would become more harmonic naturally. If you change the cycle of your breathing, if you alter it to accommodate technological cycles, such as pollution and obesity, then once again the result is a cycle that is less harmonic with the natural order of things. Some call this dis-ease, the opposite of a natural cycle, which flows with ease.
You know, if you're fat and if the pollution is bad, breathing becomes harder. This might have negative effects on your health. I don't know if you know that, but I figured you might want to know.
Of course, you can always correct a cycle that is in disease. Sure, it may take some time, but enough steps in the direction of a natural cycle do eventually get you back in the flow. If you start your day in a healthy way, at the start of the morning, then the rest of the day will flow that much more harmoniously. If you wake up with the sun, you ride the wave of the entire day and are more in tune with the day itself.
If you go for a jog, well, you have to make sure that each step is harmonic cycle to make sure that you don't become disharmonic and throw the balance of the universe up.
To practice, because I always used to love sleeping until noon. If you think about it, there are different things adapted for different parts of the day. Cats can see in the dark, so it makes sense that they're night animals. I have trouble seeing in the dark without superimposing a technological cycle over top of it, so maybe I should be sleeping. What I mean is lights and night goggles. Artificial light is a cycle of electricity, a technological cycle. There are positive and negative swings in the cycles. What I mean when I say positive and negative is the presence of something and the presence of the opposite of that thing. Such as with a magnet, you have a positive end and a negative end. One is pulling and one is pushing. Plus or minus, male and female. A lot of people think that negative means bad and positive means good, and that's not always the case. We're actually going to touch on that closer to the end of this video. A better way to look at it is male and female. Positive is male and negative is female. And don't get caught up on that positive is good and negative is bad. Women are wonderful. And in fact, in gender, everyone has both male and female energy, not just one or the other. It is the essence of giving and receiving. The best example I can give you is night and day. It's that simple. When we don't allow the cycles to flow in their natural order, we often create things that feel uncomfortable over and over. Sometimes we call it things we don't want. It's actually a sort of short circuit in the cycle, or a loop. The positive looping back on itself, or the negative looping back on itself. It's not supposed to be a loop. There needs to be a crossing over of the male and female energy. That's what creates the infinity, the oneness that we've all been feeling and talking about. Now, of course, we've also made the connection before between what we have described as cycles, this form, and the structure of DNA. This is the instruction set for the building blocks that make up our being. As we increase our awareness of these instructions and understanding, we can transcend our 3D perspective of reality and shift into an awareness of the interconnected causality of all of the planes of existence. There's a little trick here though. Understanding and awareness are not necessarily the same thing.
If there was like a third gendered, like Greek or something, well, that would throw everything out of whack. It has to be a binary with all of this, apparently. Does it make sense? Oh. Does any of this make sense? Good.
Just as the tree does what it does without needing to understand, without a brain, so to speak. Understanding is not required for the instructions to be followed. That simply means that sometimes the brain just gets in the way of the natural flow of the cycles, the natural knowing that comes through your heart. On that topic, I have something important to share. There's a lot of people who like to talk about life from this new age perspective that everything is just love and light all the time, and that if we just think happily, even when things aren't going very well, we'll be fine. In fact, I realize how I might have even propagated that idea in earlier lessons, and flat out said it. Now, this idea isn't wrong. It is, however, only half of the equation, half of the cycle. And if you recall, without the other half of the cycle, we have a loop. Think of it like a flowing river. If you cut off the flow, such as with a dam, It kills everything on one side by stopping the flow, and everything dies of dehydration. And the other side becomes drowned in a loop which gets bigger and bigger, until eventually it must break. And so, yes, we should strive to create a life for ourselves and each other that is filled with love, joy, and excitement. But when things aren't going very well, recognize if it's a part of the natural flow, or if somewhere along the way you got caught in the loop. If we lie to ourselves and pretend that the loop is the flow, even when it's not, it limits our ability to create a real transmutation of it, and create something new in its place, going with the flow. Do you understand what I'm saying? Let me say it in a different way, just to make sure, because this is incredibly important. Sometimes things go well, and sometimes things go poorly. Yeah. It's not always your fault, but you are always a factor in the cause, and influence in the cycle. If you can account for the cycle, meaning take account of it, be aware of it, you can choose to actively respond or be responsible and have an able response to it. That's what being a creator is all about. I know I just said positive and negative are not good and bad. In this example, I'm going to use good and bad in place of positive and negative. By good and bad, I mean things that feel really good and things we do want, and things that feel really bad and things we don't want. Just go with it. I know it might be a little confusing. Sometimes things feel really good and you're on the top of the wave. In this space, it's easy to ride the wave and feel good and be a creator. When you're on the bottom of the wave, if things are not excellent, sometimes it just feels easier to go to that fourth dimensional space and say, everything is perfect and in divine order. This is true from a 4D perspective. It is perfect and in divine order because it exists and is in this moment. And as it's manifesting in 3D, it is not excellent.
Grandma dying, that was part of the universal order. You just gotta live with it. I realize a lot of cultures and religions actually do say that. Oh, it's a grand purpose. This religion in a new coat of paint.
Could be excellent, but it takes time, effort, and focused energy to transmute and change it into something that is excellent. What we need to practice is taking that positive flowing energy, and instead of looping itself back on itself, is flow with it through the negative energy in order to create a transmutation into what's next. When we say that things are perfect and in divine order, and ignore the loops or even create them as a justification to dam up the river of good feelings, we actually inhibit the flow that leads to the next. That limits our ability to take action, and ultimately, what we're left with is a poo sandwich.
Okay.
Here's the analogy. Say I'm making you a delicious sandwich, and you've got bread, tomatoes, avocado, chives, maybe some peppers, and a roasted portobello mushroom. That is an excellent sandwich, right?
Sounds
now,
good.
Say I just put a big dollop of poo right on the top. Do you still want it?
No.
Can anyone honestly say that they would still want this sandwich? It's perfect and in divine order, right? Right, but it's certainly not excellent. And I don't care how delicious the other ingredients are. If there's poo on this sandwich, it's a poo sandwich. It doesn't matter how fresh the rest of the sandwich is, or even how fresh the poo is.
I find the choice of music during talking about poo to be an interesting choice.
It's not something we want to eat. The moral of this story is that if there's poop on your sandwich, if there's something in your life that is perfect but not excellent, don't just sit there and let it be. Find out what it is, why it is the way it is, and then take some actions to turn it into something you actually truly want.
Take the poop off your sandwich.
In that alchemy, we can really create some powerful change on this planet. If everyone could come from that space, we would see a new Earth overnight. Because no matter how you slice it, McDonald's, landfills, oil rigs, and this entire way of life we've made for ourselves just doesn't work. And I think I can speak for all of us when I say that it could be something different, something magical, and more in harmony with ourselves and the world around us. Waste-free, flying vehicles, spirit centers, cloud cities, interstellar travel, and the infinity of possibilities that come along with it. It's all in the cycles. Check out this painting I found on DeviantArt by the brilliant artist Adrian Kenyon.
Okay.
This is his depiction of the miraculous conception of creation and human history. It starts at unity, a sphere. The caduceus is seen coming from it, duality, then a trinity. Then, as the four elements come into manifestation, we get physical reality, crystals form, and water layers over top of it. All of these previous elements were conscious of their own, but now biological life begins to develop in the water and crawl onto land. We go through a few stages of evolution. Dinosaurs, basic mammals, and then humans show up. There's a lot of ideas as to where we came from, and we won't get into this now.
See that monkey right there? That's me. You're reacting to all of this. I'm the monkey. What the hell are we talking about?
Adam and Eve happens, the Buddha becomes enlightened underneath the Bodhi tree, and then something shifts. From this point to here is where we are now. Disconnected from our own natural spiral, paving over the ground, killing people for telling us that being materialistic can heed nothing good. Then come the world wars, and the world falls into chaos. And then something shifts again. From the destroyed world, another seed grows. We switch into a different reality. It starts out small.
Good evening, Professor Chaos. We're almost done with the Sacred Geometry movie. So far, I am not impressed. It is more flowery language, more pseudoscience, more claims that aren't backed by evidence. It's been interesting to laugh at, but it can get a bit boring sometimes. But watching it with chat has been fun.
From out of the chaos, a tiny new Earth emerges and grows larger. This is the new Earth, a new realm of light and purity that we were meant to be connected with all along. The planet continues to evolve. Here exist angels, archangels, and multidimensional hypercubes. The planet becomes more crystalline over time. The last part of the spiral is the 7th dimension, and
the last part of the spiral is the 7th dimension and the realm of God, an infinite number of multiverses. They were being literal when they said it was becoming crystalline. A newer, better, gooder world has to come after the global circle. Yeah, I was about to say, this sounds like a doomsday cult. Sounds like a doomsday prophecy, which you humans sure do love.
And the realm of God, an infinite number of multiverses dividing like cells in an embryo, an ultimate omnipresence, as everything that is contained in all of these multiverses is a part of God's consciousness. A snake biting its own tail, an Ouroboros, is the symbol of cyclic rebirth, like the phoenix. All of the information contained in the 7th dimension is held here like a nest for the next cosmic egg. There are a few other ideas that come to mind about this that I want to share as well. First, look at the shape of it as a whole. It's the triune ray, the geometry of DNA and light that we've been looking at before. If you line that up with the chakras, you can see how we go from a super dense space up to the highest frequency, until we once again connect with the same source that we were originally connected to. Doesn't that look familiar on the Flower of Life? If these theories about the Flower of Life are true...
Only then can we ride around in our multi-dimensional hypercubes on our solidified crystal planet. Yeah, if the planet's crystal, that doesn't sound like a fun time. That would be hard to walk on.
Then that means this entire experience of human history and ascension and growth and evolution is just one wave of energy from one point to another on an infinite universe of possibilities. Each point is the supreme awareness of some aspect of the God Source consciousness field. And the energy that moves between it is the vibrations and waves of energy that we are experiencing, called the electromagnetic field. As much smaller fractals of the same source energy have experiences through these waves. This image also doesn't account for the number of parallel realities that we could experience at this point. If the Flower of Life expands in these directions, then this is just one direction. Maybe instead of total destruction, which is what this image depicts, instead we make our first ET contact on this spiral and join our galactic family. On this wave, maybe something else happens. Like, we start getting superpowers, like in Heroes or something. Maybe all of that can happen right here too.
Again, we're becoming Marvel superheroes, just like they said earlier. That none of this makes sense.
Regardless of all of the potentials we can come up with, let's bring it back to this diagram. Think about how this applies in your life. Every day you live could be seen as one mini spiral. However, 7 small spirals make one larger one across the 7 small ones. This is a week. Then several weeks create a month. Several months create a year. You can map that over your life and see from birth to death, which is just like the Mayan calendar, not the end, but a transition into a new level of life. This is such an exciting time for us. As mentioned earlier, we cannot know what is going to happen, and I'm not going to tell you it's going to be this or that, because I don't know either. We will change the outcome depending on our being. What's going to happen? You decide. In Lesson 1, we discussed how you create your own reality. Many people argue that it didn't make sense when others influence your life from out of the blue. What we didn't discuss, but probably should have, is that we are a collective. We are one species. You create your own reality, but we are all co-creating our realities together on a much broader scale. Think of an ant colony. Each individual ant decides where they want to go, what food they want to collect, and how they want to do it. But collectively, they are all working together to gather food for everyone, and do what is necessary for the group, whether it be digging tunnels or gathering leaves.
I find it funny that he doesn't make mention that ants hate each other. Like, outside of the colony, they will kill indiscriminately. There are huge ant wars going on at any given time. I wonder where Jordan is now. You mean Spirit Science? He's still posting. He posted a video like a couple weeks ago. Still at it. This video is 10 years ago, but he's been keeping on it.
Humans are like that, except our mentality of do what's best for everyone is replaced with get enough money to survive, don't worry about the starving people on the street, help giant entities known as businesses take more money from the people, and don't question what's going on. We're doing it to ourselves, and we're doing it together. Together is the key word here. Together, we can break through barriers. Together, we can absolutely change the world, but we can only do it together, not individually. Individually, we can change our own individual world, which is where we need to start. When we learn that we can all get along with each other, regardless of race or belief or level of consciousness, we learn that absolutely anything is truly possible. But
we eliminate racism, we get flying ships. I have aunts who eat each other too. I'm gonna pretend I didn't see that.
Has to start here, in your heart. There was a time when, through science, we believed that the cell was the smallest thing. the building block of life. New discoveries led to the realization that the cell wasn't in fact the smallest thing. Instead, the molecule was. Now the molecule was the fundamental building block of life. But then, new discoveries revealed that it wasn't the molecule either. The molecules were made of atoms. Now the atom was the smallest thing that you could get. Then,
I don't think that went exactly how they said. I don't think people were saying that the cell was the smallest thing ever. Even back in Plato's time, he was saying that there could be smaller and smaller and smaller things. That's a little disingenuous to say, oh, the cell is not the smallest thing. I reject it. That means you're rejecting all my science. That's not how that works.
you guessed it, we discovered even smaller things. Now we have subatomic particles, and they are the most fundamental building block of all reality. Oh, okay, hold on. Now scientists are throwing around something called string theory, which is like vibrating noodles in hyperspace, smaller than all of that other stuff. Okay, so maybe it does get smaller. It makes me smile. If there's anything we know for sure, it ought to be that there's always going to be something more, or less, as the case may be. With all of our mathematics, brilliant scientists, and ever-evolving understanding, we can look and look forever, but we won't be finding a bottom anytime soon. So, why are we looking? What is science for? Is it just to know? Why does it even matter? Why should it matter to you? What difference does it make whether atoms or cells or vibrating noodles are the smallest thing? Perhaps it's because our level of understanding directly relates to the level of reality that we have control over. Which I suppose could be a very good thing.
String theory is doo-doo. I don't know much about string theory. I've heard about it. I don't know if it's credible or not. I just know that it's a theory that hasn't gone very... No, not Siri. Goddamn phone. It's something that they haven't tested very well. Who knows?
Or a very bad thing. Huh. We'll get into that a little later, because this video is about light. Why light? That seems pretty simple,
This
doesn't
video
it?
is about sacred
It's what powers
geometry.
the Earth. It's what powers me, you, everything around us. What if we could know the shape of light, its most basic characteristics, its smallest building blocks? What if we could understand the fundamental geometry and movement that light moved by? What if it was a three-dimensional solid form that we could map, as simple as a tetrahedron or a cube? Would that change our understanding of reality?
Probably not.
You know, I think that's what scientists, and maybe all of us at some level, are searching for. That one thing that might just allow us to create our own self-sustained ball of light. That one thing that connects everything. What if we could know that, the core building block of life and everything as we know it? Would it change our understanding of what light is? Well, let's put on our science hats and see what we can find out. Einstein said something amazing, something which has echoed through the halls of science since his death. He said that science should be simple, something that anyone can understand. Anyone can make things complicated and complex, but it takes a genius to make something simple. While doing research on Wikipedia, you find...
Does this guy think that this hour and a half long video he did made things simple? It was just a lot of like finding meaning in shapes and lines that you had to contrive. This was not simple.
Pages upon pages with bajillions of words describing these crazy formulas revealing the secrets of the universe, everything we know in modern science. Upon seeing these pages, it led me to ask a whole number of questions about what I was looking at. Questions like, why do we believe that light is what it is? What even is light? What is particle physics? Why is it relevant to me? Why is it that for the average Joe, these ideas about existence and reality are so hard to understand? Do scientists make them overly complex for a reason? Why are we having trouble following Einstein's brilliant words about simplicity?
Because not everything is simple in life. Just because something is complex doesn't mean that it's not true. Just because something is simple does not mean that it is true either. Is a logical fallacy in definition.
Is there a way that we can use sacred geometry to explain and simplify these ideas in a way that works and makes sense? And most importantly, how can I use this information in a way to grow as a person? I don't just want to build up beliefs about these topics, I want to expand my ability to create with them. And how do we do that? Where do we start? Well, let's start at the beginning. It's theorized across the board, from creation myths, the basic geometry of the flower of life, and even in the Big Bang Theory, that light is among the first things created at the beginning of everything. So exploring and discovering how light works will be a fundamental piece to understanding everything. Let's take a look at particle physics and quantum physics. They may help us crack this code. Particle physics is the study of the basic building blocks of matter and the forces they exert on each other. In particle physics, scientists...
Is Tetris music? It goes hard, but alright.
Scientists are trying to find the one thing that creates everything
The
else.
universe of everything?
Or at least the
no, the
phenomena
theory of
they are observing.
everything.
It is very closely related to quantum physics, which is using that same idea to discover the source of the universe we live in that ties everything together.
I have noticed that they bring up quantum physics a lot, even though it's very clear that they don't exactly know what quantum physics is. Trust me, I don't know what quantum physics is either very well. I know surface level things about it, but I wouldn't call myself an expert, and I wouldn't call these guys an expert. I'm not trying to use quantum science as a way to preach to you about how love works.
Scientists in this field have done a lot of work in demonstrating and exploring the unified field theory, which shows that everything in the universe is connected through an infinite web of something. They're not sure what it is, but we can see how we are connected in a grand and mysterious way. As our sciences have looked smaller and smaller to find the smallest particle, we have reached a point where things get so small that we can no longer define what they look like. We try and define what particles are through abstract concepts in mathematics because we say that particles are unseeable and unknowable. And yet, things are always going to get smaller and smaller. Everything is made of something else, and it fractals down to infinity, or it fractals larger to infinity. Some scientists have actually been known to cut infinite numbers when they find them because they're deliberately looking for finiteness instead of embracing the infinite nature of reality. Check out the movie Black Hole to see this happening in action. Particles are called particles because they're too small to be seen by instruments we have in science at this time. What that means is that we don't really know what particles even are. If we knew what they were, they would not be particles anymore. They would be described. There's kind of a broken dichotomy that is happening in this field.
God, I'm looking at the website and he sells a $220 course, Things of Thoth. Yeah, I mentioned Thoth earlier in the stream about how when they say that Thoth is giving sources or information, it's just a guy that claims to be inhabited by the spirit of Thoth. So, in essence, it is just a cult. Straight up. Lord knows there's several cults out there. And if you subscribe to the channel, you too can join the cult of the Ark.
It's something that scientists all over the world are trying to figure out. Here's the problem. Light and other particles that move at the speed of light are assumed to have no mass. The speed of light, also known as the speed of massless particles, is about 299,792,458 meters per second. What we know in the field of science is that there's something that translates these particles from one side of the equation to the other, from the world of no mass and into the world of mass. If you ask the scientists this question, they would tell you that it's the Higgs field, the ever-permeating field that gives things mass. In essence, light speed particles pass through the Higgs field and slow down and gain a property of mass. The popular Higgs boson is the particle that is created upon the light speed particle merging with the Higgs field. According to our formulas, this boson, this particle, is supposed to come out with it. I think there's an important piece of information that we're missing here, and it starts with asking some questions. First of all, what even is mass? And second, why do we believe that light has no mass? On Wikipedia, mass is said to represent an amount of matter, but then it goes on to say that the term matter has no universally agreed upon definition. How can we say that light has no mass when we can't even agree upon a definition or understanding of what matter and subsequently mass even are? Because of all of our fancy equations as described earlier, we have kind of thrown all ideas about what light could actually look like out the window in favor of a complex equation that looks like this. I want to take it back to simple. What if we could know the shape of light? What if we could actually define what the structure of light, as well as every particle and thing in existence, were? What if there was
Are you about to tell me that the shape of light is Metatron's cube or something? Is that, or the flower of life that we're going for? I'm calling it right now. Flower of life is the shape of light.
Basic geometry of the universe that we missed? Even more interesting, what if light was a geometric solid, and there was no difference between the geometry of light and the simplest particle? What if mass and no mass was not just about the speed that it traveled, but also the density of the information held within the shape? Maybe the speed of the particle is interdependent upon the information that was carried in the form. And the more information it holds, the denser it becomes. I have a few examples to demonstrate what I'm talking about. The first is water vapor. I know that it's not a light speed particle, but perhaps they have the same properties. See, water has a heavy density, but when it heats up, it translates into vapor and rises into the air. It takes a 90-degree turn into another dimension form, and it merges together with itself to become clouds.
But it's not 90 degrees because that's just the way it goes. That's not how this works. Neither does it always go 90 degrees. If you have a sloped river, then it wouldn't be going 90 degrees. The only reason it's going 90 degrees probably has something to do with gravity. Actually, okay, I'm not a physicist. I can't speak definitively on this, but just because it's 90 degrees doesn't mean this is another dimension. This sounds like a comparison fallacy.
As the clouds become packed, denser and denser, with so much information packed within them, eventually they have no choice but to release, and all of the water comes pouring down. It's changing from a high-speed particle into a denser one, based on the density of the information within the droplet, as well as the speed that it was traveling. Now, I recognize that this only partially works as an example, because the...
What if the wind? Yeah, the wind could probably also have a factor in where it's going, too.
Particles I was describing are not light-speed particles. But if we can take that idea and apply it to light, it seems to work in a very similar way. Let's think about photosynthesis. A burst of energy from the sun travels towards the earth as both a wave and a particle. It has properties of both, and it's moving at the speed of light, and passes through a plant. That plant then absorbs the information and energy that it needed from the wave particle that passed through it. The plant then uses that information, the light speed particles that it took from the sunlight, and uses it to create something with mass, merging them with water and other plant matter to create sugars and other nutrients.
Yes.
In addition to supporting the theory of light being a solid and holding information, and even mass, doesn't that also seem to fit the model of the Higgs boson too?
Well, the reason photosynthesis works isn't necessarily because light has mass, it's that light has energy. That energy is what fuels the chemical reaction for photosynthesis in order to create these sugars. I remember reading about this in university, that this doesn't happen because light has mass, it's because it has energy.
I could be wrong. It's just an idea.
You are wrong.
If light is a solid, it can be both a wave and a particle simultaneously. If light is a solid, it can have both density or nothing inside it at all. And if light is a solid, well, what could it look like? What my friends and I have come up with is a combination of three forms, the three simplest shapes in existence. And as you look at it, ask yourself, can we simplify it further? Light is composed of two primary forces. We call these electricity and magnetism, thus electromagnetic waves and radiation. Electricity is particles and magnetism is waves. Remember everything we've talked about with male and female energy? Electricity is male. Magnetics are female. Curves.
Okay, where does that come from?
And points, both of which are found on this shape. Looking at the flower of life, which is the blueprints for life and reality itself, you can see that's exactly how it works. You have male energy, the particles, the dots, and female energy, the waves, the curves. Now, you might notice inside the flower of life, there are two ways you can look at it. You can see the circles, lots and lots of circles, that make up the whole image. This is the female perspective. You can also choose to see this little shape that looks like a seed, which makes up the entire picture from these seeds aligning themselves perfectly with each other in beautiful six-fold symmetry. This is the...
Wait, if it's symmetrical, how come I can see the overlapping here? How did you mess this up? This is your video.
The male perspective. This seed is called the Tryon Ray, as coined by the man who found it, Michael Evans. He is a man who has given a large part of his life to exploring sacred geometry and quantum physics. And quite honestly, his discoveries are evolutionary.
Oh yeah?
The flower of life in 2 dimensions is a flat 2D representation of the way that the universe fits together in higher frequencies and higher dimensions. Michael saw this and asked a big question. If this is the universe from a 2D perspective, what would it look like in 3? So he began modeling and molding 3-dimensional flower of lives together and discovered some
straighter moment. Yeah, something like that.
Pretty remarkable things. Everything has breath, everything breathes, and everything lives. And so at a level of basic geometry of particle physics, we too must have breath. He found that every geometry we think we know of is a static and fixed perspective of what it really is. Tetrahedron? How about a tetrene and a tetrax? An inhale and an exhale of this basic form. Icosahedron? Here's an icosatrene and an icosatrax. He developed breathing models for all of the platonic solids, and then he found a new solid, one that hadn't been discovered before. Energy never travels in straight lines. It always moves in curves. By incorporating curves into the basic geometry of our platonic solids, you actually discover much simpler particles that before we never knew existed. And so we come back to these 3 images. The first one, as you know, is the sphere. This is simply one of the simplest forms, and the most female. It's all curve. It's not hard to see how this form is used in the creation of all things. Just look at a planet, or a star, or even an egg. Next we have this one, the Trinity, or the Tryon Ray. I'd actually like to make a distinction here. The Trinity is 3 spheres put together like a Vesica Pisces, and the Tryon Ray is 1/16 of the volume of that. In 3 dimensions, they both come out with 3 edges, 3 faces, and 2 points, smaller than any other shape. It's a single shape that contains both particles.
Also at the newly discovered stuff. I think that's what he's doing right now with the Tryon. I think that's the new solid that they're talking about.
And waves. They're both equally important, and Michael Evans proposes that with this trion theory, he has speculated that light could in fact be a solid. In fact, it's highly likely. This trion ray is the geometry of a straight line. For if you were to draw any of the Platonic solids, you could replace all of the straight lines with a trion ray, and you would get a diagram of both the inhale and the exhale of that Platonic solid. The great artist Delacroix once said it would be worthy to investigate whether straight lines exist only in our brains. The interesting thing about the trion ray and the Vesica Piscis is that they both have straight lines, as well as curves, and it's just a matter of perspective. One of the most important pieces of information about all of these shapes, though, is that this is how form comes into manifestation from a geometric perspective, from source to the material world. The sphere is a ball, it's all curve. Upon adding a second sphere, you get the first edge. And so this is curves and edges. When you add the third sphere, you get the first points. And now you have curves, edges, and points all together in one shape. As you continue adding circles, you get more and more shapes and forms that begin to manifest, such as the Platonic solids and everything else we know about. This is why the Vesica Piscis is so important. As you know, we've been looking at this for a long time, and we're going to continue to. Over the past year, I've been learning that the Vesica Piscis is one of the most important keys for waking up and transformation on this planet. It is a model for bringing people together to create powerful change on this planet. As we grow together and make powerful connections with each other, it is our connections that begin to alter the way that we do things. We help each other refine our messages. It is asking each other questions that allows us to explore deeper into what something really means. And then, with the newfound information that we gathered together, we can set off on a journey to change the world. Ladies and gentlemen, these three forms are what I believe to be the God particles. We have a male form, a female form, and a form of a merging together of both of them.
So the third gender wasn't green, that was the female. The third gender was red. So there you go. Love spirit science and sacred geometry. You might not like my takes on this then. This is coming off as a lot of hooey, if you ask me.
Ladies and gentlemen, these three forms are what I believe to be the God particles. We have a male form, a female form, and a form of a merging together of both of them. The God particle is not a matter of scale. It is not a smallest thing like a Lego block, but rather the simplest geometry that we can conceive in this dimension. It is a geometry that makes up all manner of things, regardless of size and scale. Just look around you. Most seeds look like this. Most leaves look like this. Most fruits look like this. Eggs look like this. Sperm looks like this. It's practically impossible not to find
Shapes
examples
look like
of it
shapes.
everywhere. All we need to do is take a look. Okay, grand finale. To answer that big question from
we're almost
the beginning.
there. Not third gender, that's just heterosexual coitus. Yeah, I guess you're right.
How does the infinite universe have a beginning? I have a feeling you might already know. It's a cycle. And no, I don't know exactly what it looks like specifically, but I can share with you some ideas about it. Every cycle comes to an end, and then begins a new cycle. Or maybe it's the old one, continuing on again. Some theories about the universe say that once it was a hugely expanded thing, and it contracted to a small point, a space of unity, and then rapidly expanded outwards again. And today, while we can't see the remnants of the previous universe, at least not yet, we can see the beginning of the cycle that we are a part of. It's really interesting. If the universe is infinite, how is it that we're existing
Just through the
in a
Misty
finite
Mountains.
space? And is the goal of life to take what is finite and merge it with the infinite to create a new way of life and a new understanding of ourselves?
That movie. So, what is sacred geometry? Did we learn anything new from the movie? I would say no, other than there are some scientists who have put forward some theories that spirit science claims are factual. When you look them up, either nothing comes up, or you find them and might lead to there's a lot of pattern finding, speculation, and well, admittedly, the guy has over 1 million subscribers. He is a good storyteller. You can't fault him for that. He's able to put these pieces together in a way that some people see as some sort of sense. Like, he's good at telling stories, but putting them into a broader context of, oh, this is how reality works, and if we all just focus on becoming male or female with our energies, doing something with our brains and thinking with our hearts, then we're gonna take our hyperdimensional cubes into the next dimension. And while I wish that such supernatural phenomenon were a thing. Trust me, out of anyone, I am the one who wants magic to be real, probably the most. However, I think it's funny how most college kids don't know what Fibonacci sequence is or golden mean ratio. I mean, they should be teaching a little bit about Fibonacci, the Fibonacci sequence in schools, but it's not the answer to everything like some of these communities claim. Best part about these were like the world. Yeah, exactly. The world building. Like the idea that Atlantis was real and there's a hollow earth and there's all these different stories. Yeah, I agree. That's the coolest part. That's the story that I want to dive into and learn more about. I think it's real? Probably not. But I want to take it and use it as inspiration for some of my own writings, some of my own projects. That's why I'm looking into a bunch of this stuff. The archive is looking for stories. I mean, the archive takes place in an infinite library, as you'll be well aware. How did I get here? I don't know. I don't know what this purpose is. I don't know a whole lot about the archive, but I'm doing my best to learn what I can, both in and about the archive, and share these interesting stories with all of you. And hopefully you were entertained at the very least tonight. I don't know if you necessarily learned something new. Given all the tangents I went on, there's a good chance that something came across your radar. Oh, it's real? What's real? The Fibonacci sequence? I mean, yeah, you could say that it's real, but it's not the answer to everything like they're saying here. The problem is that, like I was saying earlier, human brain is exceedingly good at picking up on patterns. Even when there is not a pattern, it makes me giddy, like the Percy Jackson books or something. Yeah, I could see that. Now, the Percy Jackson movies, those are something. Didn't they come up with a TV show with that recently? I think I only read the first book and went, I think I'm good. Never had that Greek mythology phase that everyone else went to. The closest I got to a Greek mythology phase was playing Age of Mythology, which I've used their songs in some videos, and wow golly, they're really good for the videos. I'm definitely going to be using more of those. But yeah, the human brain's good at picking up on patterns even when there is no pattern there. And you can see this both in, oh, there's a funny face in the cloud, or in this outlet, or on this car. Lord knows I've seen plenty of pictures of cars that look like they're grumpy or happy or what have you. But then there's the darker side of pattern recognition where you see coincidences or things among certain minorities or groups of people, and then you think that since you see a pattern that it must apply to the whole, which isn't a great thing either. Generalizations, generally speaking, are not great. Saying that all is because of a sample of some is not the best way to look at the world. So when you see the Fibonacci sequence or the golden ratio in a lot of things in nature, sure, it's interesting, but that doesn't mean that within the golden ratio you will find the secret to interdimensional travel, as much as I would like for it to. Ultimately, there's not a lot you can come with, like Atlantis and magic, Bigfoot. Yes, I know the spirit science thinks that Atlantis is real. I haven't seen his take on I haven't seen his take on Bigfoot yet. Sounds funny though. I'd be interested in hearing more about that. Again, Bigfoot is real, and he tried to eat my. No, I mustn't say it in the YouTube stream chat. I'm sure you're able to tell through how I edit my videos that I watch a lot of YouTube, and I remember there was a video from Moist Critical himself, Charlie, that went over a video of some guy saying, "Yeah, Bigfoot came into my room and he farted on my couch." It's just really funny. Yeah, if magic were real, trust me, I wish that magic were real. I wish I could cast spells. I wish I could travel to other dimensions. But wishful thinking isn't going to make or move mountains, fortunately. If I find magic, I will let you know. The closest thing that I have found to magic is the way that people can use hypnosis or tulpas or guided meditation to alter your senses and thinking. That's the closest I've found. Oh, hi, Dragoon. Someone in here was talking earlier about how they found the channel through our Cult of the Lamb games. I think we got to pick that up sometime. I think the people want Cult of the Lamb again. We'll have to get to that someday. Yeah, because we focus more on the on the base than actually progressing through the game. Maybe this weekend we can do that. But yeah, ultimately the movie was I don't even know if I want to say it's a trip. It was mostly just like, well, that's not true. Oh, do you have a source of this? No? Oh, okay. And that's how I treat a lot of political discussion these days, too. Milk for the cornflakes. That is true. We're going to get milk for the cornflakes again soon. But just generally try not to believe everything you see. Have an open mind, because having a closed mind is just going to shoot you in the foot. But don't have such an open mind that it allows your brains to fall out onto the floor. Take everything you say with a grain of salt. Don't believe everything that everyone tells you. Do your own research, come to your own conclusions, and just try and find some critical thinking. That's really all I can say. I have been streaming for a little over 3 hours now, so I think I'm going to call it here. Thank you to all the people who showed up to the stream. I will see about doing more streams in the future. But for now, I'm probably going to record this next audiobook reading and maybe play some games. The human history movie is better for a stream like this yet, but I also did miss most of the stream. So usually with these streams, I put them on unlisted, or actually not even unlisted. I just straight up delete them because they don't get a whole lot of engagement. But given how this one went, I think I'm going to keep it up. So the whole VOD will be there. Look into Zeitgeist. Is that a movie or a video or something? I'll have to look into that. But I think I'll keep the VOD for this up. I was considering going through and editing it out, or not editing it out. It's editing the video and making it more concise. Maybe I'll still do that, but for now, I think just keeping the VOD up will be a good idea. So you'll be able to go back and watch the live stream. But for now, if you have any recommendations on movies or videos to watch and react to in the future, comment them down below, and I will catch you all later. Again, thanks to everyone who showed up.